Get ready to stand up.
All right, welcome. It is Thursday, November 14th. We're here for the Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll open the floor to any public input. I think everybody here is tied in some way to the agenda. Excellent. Moving on. Review and acceptance of minutes. The October 24th one, there was an edit that Nikki had brought up on page 10. Michelle, did you see that comment?
I don't think I did because I wasn't in there, but that's okay.
All right, so on page 10, discussion of line 321 under the tax collection budget, there's a reduction amount, but the amount isn't listed. And Nikki is correct, it should be $100.
Which budget? I'm sorry.
So tax collection budget on page 10,
right,
line
right.
321, the amount should be $100.
Yep, you're right. Good catch.
Good catch, because I read them a couple times and missed it too.
I read it 3 times. It was on the 3rd time.
Excellent, third time's charm. All right, so there's an edit for that one. I wasn't aware of any for the 30th. So, and then the ones from November 7th came out, I believe, today or yesterday. So,
Just saw it today.
all right, so
It came out today.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to make the motion on November 7th,
Right.
but I will make a motion to approve the October 24th minutes as amended, along with the October 30th minutes.
all right, there's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Jessica seconds. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended for October 24th and for October 30th, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Do you remember which one I missed? I don't remember. I'm trying to find it.
I honestly.
I'm sorry.
So if you missed one, you could, I guess, abstain from both.
You don't have to abstain if you've missed a
Oh,
minute.
okay, I'll just,
Just if you've missed a meeting,
Okay.
sorry.
according to
Find it.
NHMA.
Okay.
Nikki, did
So
you
that was
second that?
1, 2,
Jessica
Jess.
seconded.
I know, we
Sometimes you
sound the
guys
same.
alike.
6, 7, so it's 8. 7, 0, 1, right?
No, there's only 8 of you here tonight.
Did you vote in
It's a
favor or did you
701.
701.
abstain?
I said I'll vote in favor.
You voted in
Oh,
favor. Okay. All right, so correspondence. We ended up canceling the walkthrough yesterday because one of the members who was hoping to attend was unable to do so. So we'll look at rescheduling that. We sent out the minutes. There was a request for an Excel budget and then discussion about what could and could not be provided. Then there were some requests for some additional information regarding supply budgets, athletic breakdowns, special education tuition breakdown, which we received from you guys. The questions regarding the technology budget, which we can discuss under old business. Obviously sent the agenda. There was an updated schedule plan that we can, if anybody has any concerns about, we can discuss at some point in the agenda. And along with that, some deadlines for the SB2 legal requirements for meetings so that as to why certain dates were chosen. So that was the correspondence. We had a busy week this week. So that moves us. Is there anything else I missed? All right. So going into the old business, there's some follow-up questions from last week's presentation. Technology budget. Did you want to?
Do you want to reschedule the walkthrough first? So
All right, we can do
so
that.
we know. Want to get that in sooner than later. So
Absolutely.
what dates might work?
So I believe we were trying to accommodate Bob, Brian, and Nikki in particular. So are there any dates? We chose a Wednesday, but you're all set?
Yeah, it's too hard for me to
Okay.
do stuff at home.
All right. Bob, is there a night of the week that will or will not work for you?
Mondays are bad.
All right. So any other night?
Yeah.
Can you, I believe you mentioned Tuesday, right, Superintendent? Works better for you? Can Tuesday work for you, Nikki?
Tuesdays aren't great for me, but
Is
I have a client till 7 on Tuesday,
Okay.
so that's kind of late. I feel bad.
So
Wednesday, I'm fine. I apologize. Something came up that I couldn't.
no, it's
Life
okay.
happens.
Life happens. That's right. So next week is just tough,
Yeah.
and then the following Wednesday is Thanksgiving.
right?
Right.
And that puts us into December 4th, which It's still right immediately before we start looking at the budget adjustments, if you wanted to try to do it that night. I'm sorry?
School board.
We could do December 3rd, though. Or-
Can you do
I can do the 3rd.
December 3rd? All right, so
Bob, can you do the 3rd?
Is that a Tuesday?
yes, December 3rd. Is there a time that you can, what's the earliest you two could do?
I don't know. What's good for you? 6?
6.
Okay.
6?
Yeah.
All right, 6 on December 3rd, Tuesday, and we will pass along that information to you guys.
Got it.
Excellent. So everybody's in the loop, December 3rd at 6. And thank you again for everybody's willingness to reschedule and try to accommodate that.
I think it's important to get LCTV there so then the general public can see it as well. So
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. So follow-up questions. How do you want to proceed? The directors are here. They can come up and they've been emailed the questions so they can simply respond to what you have, or
That's probably a good start. Because I didn't actually send the email unanswered questions along. So why don't we come up here, have your, we can speak to them. We can
Yep.
read the questions.
so let's start
And then-
with technology, if that's
Just for
okay.
a point of reference, if I may, are these questions that were submitted by the committee at the last meeting or through
They've been
email, or-
submitted through email, and then the response was, we'll discuss it at the meeting.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so if we could just clarify what the questions were.
right, so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the technology questions and answers we've all received, because I forwarded those along.
I saw that today.
So we can read through the other questions before we start, so we know what questions are going to be answered.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Evening. And just a reminder, this is our technology director, Jason Pelletier.
So, do you want me to read the question out?
Sure.
Okay,
So that way everybody understands what you're answering.
got it. So, in reviewing the technology budget, I feel it would be helpful to know which of these services, maintenance especially, are contract and which are not, and what the school's practices, policies are in seeking different bids or price comparisons for services. Some of the explanations for the items are not specific enough to be able to evaluate their utility to the district, and it'd be helpful to know the effort that goes into getting most financially responsible products and services that meet students' needs. Example, line 430 under district-wide technology services, $12,500 annually for firewall, web filtering, routing, and threat management. What service are we using? Are we in a contract? Also, I specifically had a question regarding replacement switches this year. It's an $8,000 request per school. Are the switches on a replacement plan? A considerable amount was budgeted last year for new switches, and it seems to have been encumbered based on Corey's reconciliation notes. I think it's fair to ask what the likelihood is that an additional $24,000, $8,000 per school will be needed this line item when previous funds were not yet utilized. So I responded under repairs and maintenance, which is 1,028, 4,000-430 is the cost for our annual subscription and advanced replacement agreements. For the most part, everything in IT we do in-house, so we don't really contract out for anybody except for specific items, particularly lines 331 and 330. Those are kind of the only time we actually have people come in from the outside to work with us. When it comes to that specific line for the $12,500, that accounts for 4 annual subscriptions. So web filtering, threat management, technical support, and then advanced replacement for hardware. It's all under one device. So it's not, we don't have like a bunch of different vendors and appliances. It's kind of it's all encompassed under one. So it averages out to about $3,000 roughly per line. Some of them are a little bit more, some of them are a little bit less, depending on what they are. And then the other thing that I mentioned in there was that URL filtering and everything. So we can get the federal funds. We're mandated to have URL filtering because of the students and everything. But that $12,500, that basically helps us protect all of that that's under this budget. So the $22 million budget. So anything that's stored on the servers, everything like that, it helps us stay safe and free of, as protected as possible from bad actors coming in. I also mentioned that for confidentiality's sake, we don't want to divulge what system we use because bad actors can actually use that information against us. So, but I do spend a lot of time researching every year, making sure that we leverage the best pricing for this and all products. I also reach out to vendors, and then after I reach out to vendors, I reach out to the individual salespeople from the manufacturers to be like, "Hey, this is the deal," and I try to sell it to them so that we can get even lower pricing. And a lot of times that happens, open up that line of communication. So we were able to leverage way better pricing than business, which typically happens anyways, no matter what, because we're education. But I was actually able to leverage even better pricing than the first round by going through. And I pretty much do that for almost anything that I can do. So during budget, and then at buying time. So I'm still going out and making sure that I can get the best pricing for everything. To speak to about the switch replacement lines, those 734 lines, for this fiscal year, FY20, we increased it $2,000. Just we're out of the entry level. We use enterprise switches because there's a lot of things in the back end. So all of the computers connect to it, our access points connect to it for the wireless and everything. And our performance and how much data that goes through has made us jump into the next switch level. So unfortunately, those are about $2,000 extra. So, and a lot of it's because when they come, we have to buy everything individually. The power supplies for them, they're redundant, all these other modules and stuff like that. So they can do a lot more, but they're also unfortunately more money. If we didn't do that, then we'd have bottlenecks and things just wouldn't, that data flow would get kind of all caught up and backed up. So what we have is we have some even larger switches. We call them core switches or aggregate switches in the technology world, but these are like big modular ones that need to be super fast, and they help do the back end data offloading. And then, especially with the one-to-one high school and middle school, all of that data that needs to go out to the internet and everything like that, they crunch all that stuff and hand it out neatly and securely out to the internet. So those things are even more high power, and those are what we have in our 5-year plan, because we just did one this summer that was $25,000 for comparison, right? So those ones are in our 5-year plan, but these smaller ones, just because we do have smaller little network closets, we're just swapping those out as we can. And it's been pretty good as far as that replacement of one of those per school. We just add them and go from there. And then also you'll see that encumbrance line. There's a lot of projects and everything that came out of that Department of Homeland Security audit and everything. So we did carry over, or I know that
It's 13,000 or something on a couple technology lines, but just a point of clarification in terms of encumbrances, when that gets pulled, it doesn't necessarily get pulled from an underspend in that line. It's bottom line.
Yeah.
And then we take what we do and we spread the encumbrances to the specific accounts to carry them forward through PO to the following year.
And then this year we've used most of those a lot in all of those lines. There's still some additional modules and some other connected cables that we need to do, but I don't usually buy them all up front, because you never know during the year, once we can get in and get those replacements done, then it's like, okay, I know I need this. I know I need to get this. So I'll usually get those done December. And if it's a lot going on, maybe February break to finish up a lot of that stuff. So those leftover lines are usually just residual pieces of the project that need to be completed. And then just as best practice, always reach out to the major vendors. In the networking world, in the technology world, with the vendors that we work with, it's interesting. So we have our main product vendor. So say it's, switch vendor or whatever, and we go with this one this one company that we use in the buildings. They'll say, "Who's your favorite vendor? Who do you want to work with?" We'll give them the best pricing. So I'll still go out to bid and I'll still reach out to people, but they'll say, "Who do you want to work with for these switches, for instance?" I'll say this company, and then so any other company that goes through their channels to bid, the company that I pick always ends up having a lower cost. So I still go out, I'll still reach out because you never know. Sometimes we get lucky, but for the most part, whoever we tell that company that we're going with, they'll be the least, they'll have the lowest bid on there. But we still go out to bid, and we'll do that for almost everything, other than like some of the small items. Just to, you never know. Sometimes we'll get lucky and we'll get really good pricing. $10,000, I think, is what we're mandated to get the bids or the quotes for, but we'll still do it for things that are, 1,000, 2,000, whatever it is. So we try to always do that, and top priority is always what's best for students, parents, and community. So whenever I'm trying to make decisions, that's that top tier that I look at. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions from those, but more than happy to clarify.
So he's addressed the questions that were emailed. Did anybody have any other questions that were not sent or that have been since prompted?
I have 2 questions on the technology budget while you're here.
Sure.
And I apologize for not being here last week, so this may have been covered. I'm just not remembering it from the discussion.
Sure, no problem.
So this is, I don't know what page this is. Page 2. This is the Chromebooks at CHS. And the increase this year of $30,750. It looks like it's somewhat artificial because it was budgeted in past years, but not necessarily in 20. Just curious on that line, why the change? What happened this current year that wasn't budgeted, and why is it rebudgeted?
Absolutely, sure. So the previous years, what we did was we started at 8th grade at LMS for the 1-to-1. So we did the 8th graders first before we did the full 1-to-1 rollout. And we ended up starting that halfway through the school year. So the Chromebooks that the 8th graders had were still really new. So what we did was, instead of ideally 5th grade, you get a Chromebook, 9th grade, you get a Chromebook, you'll have it through LMS, then you'll have it through CHS, just a good cycle. Yep. But we said, no, just bring those up to the high school and you'll be good. So we didn't have to budget for the high school. All we had to do was for those 5th graders, because we spent that money for the 8th graders that previous year to get them going with the 1-to-1. So this year is that start of that of that cycle where in 5th grade, you'll receive a Chromebook for your tenure at LMS, and then 9th grade, you'll receive your Chromebook for tenure at CHS.
Got it. So we had that one artificial year, and now it's back into a regular cycle. Right. Okay, perfect. The cost of the Chromebooks is $250. Is that? And I know that there's many different line items in this budget for Chromebooks. Leading to literally tens of hundreds of thousands of. I mean, it's a lot of money, right? So. Is that a contracted price, $250?
That's kind of what the average is been kind of coming out to roughly. So it's hard for us to guess what the price is because it's going to go up and down. We've gotten Chromebooks for as low as one year, I think $187, but we also had a year where it was $280 a piece. And then there's also a license that's attached to that. And that license is usually $23 to $28, depending. It fluctuates. I don't know exactly how they come up with that number. So when we kind of put that together, it's been coming out to about $250 roughly for everything that we need to get those Chromebooks up and going.
And just, if I remember correctly from school board meeting, because we're now 1-to-1 middle and high school, the price has actually gone up because we're not buying as many. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, when we first started, we bought a lot, and there isn't a lot of cuts that they do on the Chromebooks when you buy them, just because they're so cheap already. So the vendors aren't getting a ton of money. But the less that we buy, the less leverage we have, because we're going up against school districts that have, a lot more kids than us and everything like that. So the margin is a lot lower, and I'm sure too they probably know, well, you guys are doing a 1-to-1 program. So but nonetheless, that is the reality. The less we buy, the less leverage we have to get better pricing.
So are these also compatible with all the carts that we funded in years past, the charging carts and all that?
pretty much all of the new ones that are coming out, they're starting to standardize on USB-C charging. But until this year, each model's had a different charger. So in those carts, what we've been doing is when the seniors graduate, we've been bringing those down to the elementary school. And a lot of times we'll just recable those carts around with whatever the model that's in that cart with the proper charger for those.
My last question on this budget is on software lease, which is line 446 under district-wide. There's an item here for HB 1612 security and audit for $17,820, which looks to be a new item.
Yes, it is, and it is new. So HB 1612, for just a backstory, it was an amendment that ended a bill that came out that ended up creating an amendment in one of the RSAs, and part of that said that we need to. And I can send you the link. I think I had it on the paper that I sent around. But we need to be able to audit, monitor, log a bunch of activity that's going on. That's part of that. It's an unfunded mandate. In order to do all of that and other things that are in that rewriting of the RSA. To properly do that, we need some powerful software and or additional people to do that. I reached out and
At the link
Yeah.
there.
I
The
reached
link
out,
works.
did a bunch of research, and currently we found that to give this a shot for the first try, let's do the software route instead of adding people. And unfortunately, it is very expensive software. It's just the nature of the beast. And this was the least, this was the software that cost the least. It actually seemed to be the most efficient software too on top of it, but this was the least expensive software to do what we wanted to do. So that's why we added that there.
Scan it and send it to me. He distributed it last week.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I didn't see that, so thank you very
Yeah,
much. You
yeah,
answered
you're welcome.
2 of the questions that were on that sheet.
No problem, no problem.
I'll get you a copy.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions relative to the technology budget?
Thank you. I
Hearing
appreciate
none.
it.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming back.
Thanks.
I did not get any emailed questions relative to curriculum instruction and assessment.
I did not receive any.
Mary Woodman is here, so if you have questions, feel free to let us know. Otherwise, you can get at least 2 directors on their way home to their families. And
Yep, I had heard none. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Hearing none. Hearing none, thank you. Appreciate the
job.
dedication.
thank you.
Let's see.
And then we have special ed. So Devin is here, and there were several questions. So I
Right.
want to make sure that she can address those for you.
So the questions that were sent to Devin, do you want to read them or do you want me to read them? Or?
I can read them.
Excellent.
All right. So the first question was, would it be possible to get clarification from a special education coordinator on what the abbreviations after items mean, such as in the supply lines, there's a P, a DD, an S3. I'm assuming that's different grades or programs, but it's making it hard for me to compare last year's asks and actuals. So the P is for preschool. The DD is for our developmental delay program at GMS, and S3 is the student support services programs that we have at LMS and CHS. The second question was under
So we're going to repeat that. So P,
Sure.
P is
preschool. DD is developmental delay. And S3 is the student support services program at LMS and CHS. All right, the second question was under CHS Special Education line 737 Furniture replacement, they're requesting $3,709 for a new conference table and chairs for room 246. What is this room and why does it need a total replacement at this time? So 246 is a conference room. We use it for all of the special education meetings that happen regularly throughout the year. Over the 8 years that I've been there, anytime another department gets sort of an upgrade in their furniture, we'll take the hand-me-downs. So it's looking a bit ragged. So that's why we have it in there, requesting the conference table and chairs. The next question was under district-wide speech services line 580 travel, increase of $200 for a new item, community outings for speech students, such as, so the speech language pathologist for our students up at the high school that will that have more complex needs might be with us until 21. They're doing some community-based activities, so it's to help with any cost so that they can participate and be able to generalize their skills out in the community. So that's what that's for. Another part of it was that they are requesting less money for things like workbooks for speech students. So I'm wondering if there are fewer students needing speech therapy or if they are reusing materials more often. They're not necessarily fewer, but they reuse the materials that they had from year over year. They have a lot of web-based materials and apps that have already been purchased. So I think that's why you see a little bit of a decrease in those lines there. The next question was under district-wide special services admin line 534 postage has been requested $300 for several years, but doesn't seem to spend near that amount. Why that number? What are the anticipated needs for that? I don't know the answer to that question. We certainly mail quite a bit of things. I'm just not sure if what we're spending is getting charged to somebody else. But we have a machine that we select special services on. So that's what the funds were. When I saw that, I'm like, I don't know.
Double check the machine.
It's coming from somewhere. Sorry, Campbell. And then the last question was, is it contractual that the director attend 4 conferences per year with hotel, airline, and meals? So contractually, I have professional development and so forth. In my contract, I have 1 annual conference. So that's what the airline is for. If I attend the national conference. So I don't know if that.
But it's one.
But it's 1 national conference. And then other conferences are local.
Okay. Are there any other questions or further questions as a result of the information that was just provided?
I had asked about, I thought the P might have meant preschool, but I wasn't sure. So I appreciate the clarification as I'm just trying to get into this. So kind of what I had done was I had tried to compare this year to last year for some of the breakdowns because we don't have, so like for, I guess this is page 2 of yours, for under 610 supplies, we have the comparison of like how much did you ask for supplies in total. What I tried to do was compare last year for the individual lines. So for example, like the first one, paints and construction paper, last year was only asked 300 and this year you're asking 500. But for preschool with the enrollments, it didn't seem like we were having that many more children. So I just trying to understand some of the increases and whether, because if it's not more kids, is it just each kid's using more or?
Well, I think it also depends on whether or not there's any leftovers from the prior year. So they're obviously going to go through that before they're ordering. So then what they might order might be less, but they do a lot of projects as well as part of the curriculum. So.
Are there any other questions? And then there's also an executive summary from this one as well. Did you want to take a look at it?
I will take a look at it afterwards.
Okay.
Yep. So I apologize. I'm just receiving this binder with these summaries tonight. So I will I reserve the right to ask questions. through email,
Absolutely.
If that's okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Happy to answer. And just a reminder to the budget committee, because I can't emphasize this enough. This budget is one that makes us more nervous than others because it's required. It's federally mandated. If families and students arrive with special education needs, we have to meet those. And it's more of a guessing game, if you would, because we're projecting out at 8 to 20 months as to who may arrive. And we've had some families arrive this year, and it's put us already into the red. And so the board is now, we didn't vote the other night,
We
did
didn't
we?
vote the other night, but we're taking a look at the numbers to pull money from the capital reserve.
I was gonna say, don't we have a capital reserve account as a safe net for?
That is our safe net.
We
but-
do.
But dipping into the safe net in November
That's
is
right.
unnerving because we still have a lot of time to go in the year. And so, but the reality is we're estimating like 60,000, I think is our
In
number.
transportation and tuition, I think it's right around 45 to 50,000
Okay.
that we're.
Yeah, it's at 43,000. We're waiting for an invoice from a transportation company, which will put that up. So that's what we're in the red for those two specific lines for the current fiscal year.
So again, this is one budget that we monitor very carefully. Devin does a great job with her staff, projecting where student needs are. And it's easy to take students who are here in Litchfield. We know the educational needs. We can kind of understand where they're headed, what might be on the horizon as they transition grade levels and so forth. The unknown is the move-in. The unknown is the family that buys a house in Litchfield and arrives and has an IEP that's been developed in a previous school with a guaranteed educational service that we then are responsible to deliver. And that's the piece that I just can't emphasize enough, that it happens. It happened this year. It can happen again. And it's just that unpredictable aspect of it.
For the transportation, I know this is a point of discussion every year, and I've been a couple of years out, so I apologize in advance. This has been already asked or discussed. When a student has transportation needs, and they're going to the same facility, right? I'm assuming we have multiple students going to the same facilities, right? RSEC is one of them, I believe, and others. Does the student require their own individual transportation, or is that shared?
It's shared transportation, and then the cost fluctuates depending upon the contracted service provider and whether or not we can cost share with another district as well. So if we're able to tag on with another district,
Right.
then we have a lower per student cost as opposed to paying the,
All that's factored into the budgets already. Yep. Okay.
as best we can, because until we get into the summer when we're checking with the company that we have a contract with, whether or not they can do it because they have first right of refusal, and then we can go out to other transportation providers. Trying to figure out.
I have a question. When these people come in, or whoever comes in that has these special needs, do we ever say no? I know you're saying we can't, but has anybody ever fought it?
Well,
Saying,
they're
you know,
neighbors
You come in
and
from another town, that may be a lot bigger town with a lot more resources, and they have a bigger budget. We don't. If they come in here just because they decided to move here, now all of a sudden our taxpayers have to pay for their kid.
but that's the reality, Brian, of they're your neighbors, they're members of the community, and the
They
obligation.
moved here, and I understand that
But
our
as soon
neighbors,
as they
but
move, they become a legal resident under the law.
have we ever fought it?
And
Have we
the-
ever said, we can't afford everything that this person's saying that we have to pay for?
The obligation is to provide the educational services for the child that have been identified. We can review that. We have the ability to look at programs that we may offer in-house and whether they meet the child's needs. So we certainly review all of that. We don't simply adopt it as is, right? So we definitely undergo the review. But keep in mind, as a smaller district, our programmatic offerings are more limited than larger districts. So that's another factor that, because they're individual needs, and so what we have available doesn't always match a larger district where thousands of students are there and you may have duplication of needs. So
Can the
all of that
argument
comes into
be
play.
made that they also chose to move here? You know, you choose to bring your child here. You know we're a smaller district. We have a lot smaller budget. and you choose to put the tax burden on the citizens of this town versus moving to a city that has a lot more offerings for you. I mean,
I just think that's part of the name of the game, though, right? I don't believe that's in their control.
Realistically, that's an argument to be had at the State House.
It's the
That's
state.
correct.
well, I guess I was wondering, can we fight it at all? I mean,
So
you look
realistically,
at,
I mean,
I don't
we
think
have a
would
legal,
win it if we did.
well, not under the current laws, but we have, if you feel that passionate about it, there are plenty of state legislators in town who you could work with to try to adjust state laws, but that would be the forum and venue to try to address those.
Your concern is valid, right? I mean, there are students certainly with needs that require hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment, certainly over a 4 or 8 or longer year period, right? And it's a lot of money for the taxpayers to absorb. I get it, right?
I'm not saying I have anything against the kid. I don't.
I know, right? It's
I have
the
a problem with the
obligation
amount
of
of
the
money it
school
costs.
district, though, right? I mean, it's what you need to provide for that student for the educational services.
So a couple of things. I mean, yes, it is the nature of school funding in New Hampshire because it is a local funding initiative by and large. There is catastrophic aid that is available to help in the case of a family with extreme swings in needs, but even the payment of aid is out how many months? I mean, it's like recovered maybe the following fiscal year.
We
So
don't. So this current fiscal year, we wouldn't submit until July 30th, and then it's reviewed. Questions, if there's anything that needs to be changed, comes in November. So by the time we actually receive the funds, you're already well into the next fiscal year, and it's anything over a cap, and then the state sets the percentage. So some years it's been 70%. So the amount over the cap, the district is reimbursed 70% of that
Cap per
amount.
student or cap per district?
It's set by the state, so it's a firm amount. So it's not necessarily per student, but it's
I was thinking like if you have a bunch of kids who are just under the cap, but you still spend a small fortune, then you get nothing. But if it's like a deductible for your insurance and you hit that, and then you get the percentage. So, okay.
But I'm
Yeah, so
assuming
you have to-
that's continuous, right? So this year, you're likely going to have unanticipated revenue that was submitted from a year ago or a year and a half ago.
although you're still educating the child,
Correct.
most likely. So,
Yes.
but it does arrive as revenue. And I think the other thing, and it's great to think of Litchfield as a small town. In many ways, it is. But when you compare it to the countless other small towns in New Hampshire, we're large in comparison, right? And so, I live in a town of 1,500 people, and we have an elementary school of fewer than 100 students. And the same thing can happen. And the burden is still on the same taxpayers with a similar tax base. So, in fact, it's even worse because there are fewer people to spread that around to. So, it's all relative. It's easy to say a large city, but in the end, it's really a school funding issue that is embedded in the way New Hampshire funds schools.
Great.
Are there any other questions relative to the special ed budget? Hearing
Just really quick, thank you for the breakdown of the handicap tuition line. I think that's 569. I hadn't caught this last year, so I was just curious. One of the lines is the charter school services and costs. It's almost 14. So is that a student who it has been determined that a charter school would be the best least restrictive placement, or like what is in that line?
no, under New Hampshire law, a parent can choose to place their child in a charter school. And if they have an educational disability, then the district of liability remains responsible to pay for the services needed for that student. So it could be paraprofessional, it can be special education services like reading instruction, math instruction, speech, OT. We're responsible to pay those services.
And again, keep in mind, charter school familiarity. They are public schools in the state of New Hampshire. A parent can choose to attend one of the charter schools. Now, often there are lotteries or processes in order to accept a student. If a student is accepted at the charter school, the state reimbursement for that is less than what we receive. So that cost differential makes it so that the charter schools tend to be thinner on staff. And so then all the special needs reside back at the district of liability. And so that's the piece that we're no longer receiving any aid for the child because it's going to the charter school,
Right.
but then we're providing the services without the aid. So, that's just a piece that you got to keep in play as it sort of plays itself out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I believe the rest of the questions were going to be addressed by the principals, because one was regarding a breakdown of supplies.
Yeah, so we're going to walk
And
right,
one had to do with the athletic.
we're going to
budget.
walk right through. I've emailed those questions in advance. We'll start with Campbell High School because some of the questions can be addressed there. And
So I just want my committee to know that
Yep.
all the questions to the previous department heads have been addressed. The questions that have not yet been addressed will be addressed tonight as they go through their budgets, because it was regarding breakdown of supplies and I believe your athletic transportation budget. So those are the outstanding questions that did not get forwarded because they were going to be discussed tonight. No, because I was hoping to have responses, but the response was, we'll respond to it tonight. So I was like, okay.
If you could.
Absolutely. I have them open right now.
Okay, just
I'll send them to you
Email
right right this second.
I also failed to hit send to Devin's email until about 5:30 tonight when she said, do they have any questions for me? I'm like, yeah, I sent them yesterday. Did not. So see how good she is? 5:30 and she had them all for you. So
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I want to apologize. I did not three-hole punch that sheet. I'm sorry. But that is the executive summary that I passed around for our budget this year. I'm not going to read through it, but our enrollment is not going to change significantly in the coming year. We're going to be down about 20 students. One-to-one program is going well, so we can continue to use IT to find digital tools for our classrooms. Going to continue to boost the library and the Learning Commons, replacing furniture and updating furnishings there and in other places around the building are priorities for us. Carrie, you mentioned the athletic transportation, and certainly that's a concern. The increases were significant this year. Science is using lots of consumables. Our computer education department is growing. We want to continue that. We're still tuitioning students to the CTE centers, so you'll see vocational tuition increased a little bit this year. And again, replacing old, outdated furniture is a priority for us. So if you look down to the key variances, I mentioned athletic transportation being up significantly, and that's due to the negotiated bus contract last year. Our students take lots of athletic trips all around the state of New Hampshire, and so that was a significant and kind of surprising increase. Our technical education program, our wood shop, needs a new miter saw and a new shaper, which is basically a large tabletop router. Our library services are up. Again, that's primarily due to furnishings that we need. Our music classes are up due to a new course I want to introduce, which is an intro to piano course, which aligns with some of the new music programs down at the other schools. Our science furniture replacement, we're actually beginning to replace our lab stools in our science lab classes. They're at their life's end. They're about 20 years old, and we continue to Mickey Mouse them together and cobble them together. So we're hoping to do that. Our PE and athletics, which is some increases with respect to some software, some banners, some kettlebells. Computer education is up. Other support services, primarily supplies for graduation. So we're renting more chairs for graduation, additional printing of programs and graduation gowns. So that's up a couple of $1,000s. And then our co-curricular supplies are up, and we're introducing a couple of new clubs. And we also want to buy a large portable sound system that we can use at outside activities around the school. We're finding ourselves really being challenged by taking large groups, whole groups outside. As far as decreases, the regular education because of a lease on a copier. Family and consumer sciences has no more reality babies. These are expensive tools that they use in the classrooms. Guidance, this is an important one, has no more Pinkerton tuition for a student from Litchfield who is attending Pinkerton under state Board of Education requirement. Our music equipment replacement, we reduced that from $12,000 down to $1. We've replaced percussion cases and some of those other things. So that's a nice sign. And then science equipment additional, we've outfitted our classrooms with cutting edge microscopes. And as a result, we can begin to stop doing that. We've really done a nice job of increasing the tools that the kids are using in their science classes. So now basically, what's that?
every year I'm like, why aren't we outfitting our science labs? We're done.
We should be done with microscopes, tissue scopes. Those we should be done at this point. Yes.
Excellent.
So our overall budget is down about, up about 2.6%. And most, if you look across the budget, most of those have been flatlined. A lot of them, we've really begun to sort of pare them down somewhat. I will say the challenge day, we're going, our plan is to do it one more year this coming year and then to alternate years. So we won't do it in the 21-22 year, and then we'll look to have it in the 22-23 year. We don't plan to increase athletic programs, and I think we're in fairly decent shape with this budget. So I'm interested in walking through it and seeing what you think.
So just a couple of points, right? These summaries are really helpful.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about for those of us that did the walkthrough, as one of the priorities was the loading dock, right? And the state of the concrete. Is that in this budget?
It's actually in the buildings and
Building
grounds.
That'd be in the
grounds.
facilities budget.
That's in the facilities budget.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
To be coming.
Okay.
Sure. I also, as we begin, I know that the art budget was a concern with respect to the supplies line.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so just to address that up front, I didn't have a chance to speak with my bookkeeper prior to coming in here, or the art person who coordinates that budget. But what I did do is I went back to the last very specific one we had. This hasn't changed in terms of the supplies they're looking for. In fact, if you see on this, the short abbreviated version has all those same courses in there. The one change we've made since this one was the teachers added a glass section to the art classes. So literally firing up glass, melting it down, making beads, making trays, doing those types of things. So that's why about 3 years ago, our budget was around $7,000. And it went up to about what I think $7,500 now. So I just want you to see that, so at least you have something to look at as you look at that abbreviated. And what I'll try to do is get together with my art teacher and the bookkeeper.
Much appreciated.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll pass this around so you can at least take a look at this. And please keep that in mind. That's the 2019 budget report, but it gives you a sense of what some of those supplies are. And it starts about 3/4 of the way down on the page there.
Thank you.
So last week, we went through page by page.
Let's do it.
And just paused. This one's a lot bigger. It's 33 pages compared to a few, but we're happy to do that approach if that's what you would like to see.
I think that since we have a number of new members who are not necessarily familiar with it's a good opportunity for them to at least get a first look at it, especially while you're here to explain any questions that they may have.
Absolutely. And if you'd like me to come back next week, I can do that as well. So,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
okay. Yep.
So hopefully people have had an opportunity to at least start looking in. So if you have any questions, we can start with page 1.
Absolutely. Yep. So the CHS regular education, as you see, it's down 33.31. And that's primarily due to leases, so it's somewhat flatline.
So have the lease costs gone down, or are we just using fewer machines?
Different company we're using for service agreement, trying to consolidate the entire fleet under one company, so we're not different prices.
You only want to pay one bill?
That would be helpful.
Makes absolute sense. Appreciate that. So page 2.
Remember, this is a very departmentalized budget at the high school compared to the other schools. So.
Yep. And so the art department is down about $171.
Hearing nothing, page 3.
Yeah, so basically, I don't know if it's clear to the other budget committee members, but I had submitted with the art budget and so what I did when in comparing what we got last year, the supply lines were more broken down, so it was easy to see, okay, this is what this costs, this is what this costs. Whereas while I appreciate a lot of the totals were level funded, not having the breakdown makes it hard to know, okay, so we had to buy all of this again for the same, or are there different needs being addressed? So
They use a lot of consumables and
A lot,
you'll see
obviously,
that
for
in
art,
certain
for sure.
departments. And
Yeah.
that's one of the significant things with the art department is consumables. The other piece is, they've been purchasing digital
the
cameras.
cameras, yeah.
Okay, which is, when you have a digital photography course, you can't rely on students to necessarily have their own digital cameras. And we don't have enough to allow to rotate through the students within the classes.
Just so the budget committee understands too, we had purchased welcome back gifts for the teachers this year, and they came with these fabulous cardboard boxes all divided up. And so I said, don't throw those away. The art department can use them. And you should see the shadow boxes they created out of the recycled cardboard. So it's not just going to buy materials. We literally, I mean, to stack them in the office, people thought I was nuts. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, you wait and see. And they're awesome. They hang in the back hallway by the gym. Take a peek.
Excellent. So we were on page 2. Is there anything on page 3? Personally, I've just focus on the big tickets and always ask the other ones later. Page 4.
I had a question just in general with all the dues and fees of the different departments. Sort of what the process is when they want to add an additional membership fee. You know, each subject is going to have a lot of different organizations they could be a part of.
Correct.
So I had just noticed that there was a new membership fee in the foreign language department. So I was just curious.
We had a new teacher join us this year.
Okay.
From another school and wanted to be a participant in the other world language
Gotcha.
program.
Thank you.
Page 5. 6. 7.
Going kind of fast.
Well, it wasn't king. It's mostly level funded, so I won't be able to go back later.
Well, I
Especially
mean,
decreases.
Well, yeah. In each
It's not
time,
the
though, I
same as level
figured.
funding.
yeah.
It decreases.
Maybe we're looking to decrease more down the road. I can see some of that happening, but yeah.
I heard that.
I know. No, I see areas down the road, maybe not this year, but I do see them.
I have no questions on this budget, so I'll defer to
Right.
the other members.
8. How about 8 or 9? That way we can go a little quicker. Because it opens up that way. So on page 9, the portable keyboards, those are all new keyboards. That's the new class, right?
That's correct.
And is that in lieu of another class?
Yeah, we've taken out a dance class. Currently, neither of our teachers is certified to teach dance, and it's not a strong area of interest for either of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we anticipate this being a long-term shift.
That's correct.
as opposed
Yes, yeah.
Excellent.
So how many pianos does the music department have? It looked like there was an additional,
Tuning.
so it's more tunings.
We have 3 pianos now.
Okay.
We purchased a new one last year. Beautiful grand piano. And then kept the 2 older ones. So one is up on the stage and one is set out in the music room. So it's 2 tunings each for 3 pianos now.
Thank you.
So 10 and 11.
So music is down 79, 74. And then science is down 35, 46.
So on page 11, 737 furniture replacement. Is this going to become an annual expense as we try to
Correct.
replace?
Yes, yes.
So,
Yep.
How many labs, Phil?
There are 5 labs.
so then it'd be, one a year for 5 years, and then we'd be
Yeah.
off for a
And then
while?
we would be done. Yep.
Do you shop around to look for better pricing?
We'll do that. We just pulled, I think, a generic, nice lab stool, but you want them to be sturdy and reasonably priced. So particularly when you have 15, 16-year-old kids moving them around.
And you want to get 20 years out.
Correct. Yep.
Excellent. Any other questions on 10 or 11? 12 and 13?
Yeah, my pages are sticking.
So social studies down over 1,000,
All right,
tech ed down 75.
14, 15? So do we not, on page 14, line 734, do we not currently have a 3D printer?
We have one in the library, in the Learning Commons. The First Robotics has one in a separate area, but this is specific to the computer science classes and the ICT pathways and some of the other programming classes.
ICT.
Oh, it's information communications technology.
This has to do with computer science.
And it looked like there had been some discussion at the school board meeting about costs of new printers and potentially that 1,200 number, potentially looking into it.
It could, yes. In fact, Rob gave us a suggestion on some other 3D printers, but I haven't had a chance to talk to Jason
They've
about.
become very affordable.
They have, yes.
I'm lobbying one for one. So
Oh, is it?
he said, think of all the Lego replacements we could build. So, all right. So 14, 15, other than that. So on 15, the vocational tuition, 561. Are we seeing an increase? Is it an increase in tuition, increase in participation?
More students participating in the program. Yep. So we pay about $990 to Pinkerton or Alvin.
Point out to the budget committee, when you send a student to one of the CTEs, $990, you're leveraging all the federal funds that are used to support that. So it really becomes a very cost-effective way, and it's highly individualized to the student's interests. So it's a great program, and it helps out our students significantly in terms of career pathways, and it saves tax dollars for Litchfield.
Now, I had heard a discussion or a rumor about potentially opening it to 10th graders. Is that in this budget at all?
No, not currently, but you're correct. There are some programs where they're looking at having 10th graders go in there. I haven't made a decision to move in that direction yet. The challenge with that is finding available seats for your students in the programs. In fact, the two CTE centers that we send students to, they're having communications and conversations about seat allocations for the various towns. For example, at Alvin, I think there are 6 towns that send students to Alvin.
Oh, at least.
Right. So
That release is a nightmare.
we all want a piece of that pie, right? And it's the same thing with Pinkerton. You have similarly students coming from all around. There are 5 or 6 contracted towns plus us and others. Yeah.
All right, so 16, 17.
Nikki, did you do any analysis on 810 on the line by line?
The dues and fees one?
Yes.
Yep.
The
Curious
main,
what's
I
different.
compared all of them. It was the SAD dues had gone up, but there's a
Correct.
note that the interest in the club went up.
Yep.
So it was 150 last time, it's 350 now.
Correct.
And then the annual freshman cookout was budgeted 700 last time, and it's up more. So the more.
We actually spent over $1,000
Yeah,
this year.
so I
Just a
think
lot more interest in it, both among students and staff.
I had a question under 610, the Watts Club.
Yep.
Is that a new club?
It's a new club. It's a new club that's in the process of negotiations as part of the LEA contract.
Okay.
We're removing some, or at least negotiating, removing some other clubs and organizations that have been in the budget a long
What does it
time.
stand for? Just
We're all the same. So it's a club that provides opportunities for students of very varying degrees of ability to work with each other, to work with kids from all other parts of the school. So it's a welcoming program for students who who fit in different ways.
Gotcha. Okay. So 16 and 17.
Question on, for 810.
Mhm.
The overnight conference,
Mm-hmm.
is that like, do you,
That is FBLA. Is that the one you're referring to? Yep, that's an overnight conference that our Future Business Leaders of America takes. They go up to, I believe it's Manchester, and they do an overnight there with other schools from around the state in competitions.
So is that like
parents
an,
not, why didn't parents pay for that instead of the town?
I was asked, is that a registration fee or is that? for the
It's a
cost of-
registration fee for that. That's correct. Yep.
Does that include the cost of staying?
No, the
over?
students actually pay. They pay for the cost of their hotels for that trip.
They do.
Yeah.
Do fundraising.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
to me, it's one thing to pay the registration fee. It's another thing
Yes.
to pay
No,
full free for
that's-
the entire trip.
Yes.
So with the
Students-
registration fee, that's, I can. totally
Yes. Yes. No, students pay for the hotel fees for that.
So that's
Yeah.
just registering them to go to this thing.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Any other questions on 16, 17? All right,
Yeah,
moving
I
on.
guess my only question, I mean, yeah, as we flip through these pages, and you're right, I mean, this budget's really not, a big change in the overall big scheme of things, and I appreciate that. But all of these budgets are up, right? And even if we look at just 2017 and forward, what's in these sheets, we can go back to 2014 or before if the committee wants, but, all these budgets are up, right? And so when I look at dues and fees, why is it up $5,000 over the period? Right? Yes, it's very comparable to last year, but
Sure.
what's the spike?
Robotics.
But it's all
But
of these lines.
robotics has been there since they began. So that 10,000 was part of the town.
Yep.
That was added at deliberative. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Yes. Well, I think a piece of this, and we're talking about the 810 specifically or the overall co-curriculars.
Well, I'm talking about 810 specifically because that's what we're reviewing, right? But the theme is the same, right? Over the last 3-4 years, what's in this budget is all of these lines are up significantly, right? Even though it's level funded or fairly level funded to last year, which is nice, the picture is this has gone up significantly over the years, right? And they're just trying to get an understanding as to why. Questions relative to this line 810, but again, the theme is the same.
And I just throw in, Andrew, I'm in a middle high school with 3 things I do with social studies. Like, for example, I do National History Day. The registration fees, I think, in the last 6 years have gone from $65 to $135 per student just to register.
Right.
I think a lot of fees have jumped. It didn't jump for years. Like, I think it was $65 for the first 10 or 11 years. And all of a sudden it went from 65 to 135. I'm not saying that's the case, but I think a lot of these organizations hold the line for as long as they can, and all of a sudden you get whammed one or 2 years.
If you'd like, I can take a look back at the 3 years of specifics and give you some sense of how they're varying from 3 years ago to what they are today.
I mean, look, there's other bigger areas to address in this budget. CHS, in my opinion, is not one of them. It's just a theme that I'm noticing. So thank you, though.
Okay.
All right, 18, 19.
Back on 17. Under the conference workshop reimbursement.
Yep.
So that, 272. So it's up 1,000 overall.
Sure.
Curious. So I had tried to compare it to last year's, but I think last year's, I think that some of the numbers I saw some things, I don't think it was actually 15 last time because
Yes,
it
no.
was only 500 budgeted for that first. So, it went from 500 to 2,000.
Yes, absolutely. No. So I have a new athletic director.
Okay.
Very exciting to have him on board. And one of his requests through the budget process was to attend the national conference on that. So for him, this is something that he sees as really worthwhile. He was out of New York City, and he'd been several times before, and he finds it really worthwhile for himself.
Gotcha. Okay.
So on this
Maybe
one,
it might not be a yearly thing.
Okay. Yeah,
see what he comes back with. Challenge Day, I'm sorry, did you say that was going to be coming every other year?
that's correct.
So we'll take the 16 this year and the next year will be zeroed
It'll
out.
be zeroed out. Well, $1. We'll put $1 in. No, it'll be zeroed out.
For athletics, I'm ignorant to a lot of this stuff, but when it comes, don't kids or parents or whoever raise funds to fund these things, or do the taxpayer? I mean, I'm looking at like $34,000 for all these, for basically sports. So if you're a person that participates in the sport, don't you have to pay a fee to do that? And then don't,
No, there are
Not
towns
paid for
that have user fees. We don't have user fees for athletics. It's been a strong feature of our schools is strong athletic programs. I would advocate that it's important kids do better when they're involved in, whether it's co-curriculars, any kind of clubs, organizations, and athletics. They do better academically when they're doing those things typically. So they're costly though.
right, I just don't understand why, if you want your kid to participate in this, why don't you pay for them? Instead of it basically being on the taxpayer's dime versus the parents who, or the kids that are playing these sports or involved in these activities, why aren't they contributing at least?
So a couple of things about it. Again, it's the nature of the way it's funded in America, to be honest. And, European models are very community-based and American models are school-based. So when the Campbell Cougars are playing against another team, it's a school-based team. And that's just the nature of the way we go about athletics. Keep in mind that if you took all these programs away, what would there be for Litchfield children to do after school? There really wouldn't be a lot. And so, it's a factor that this is the way it's done. And we have a pretty high participation rate compared to other communities. When you come on campus, you see students all over the place. And I don't know what your rate is. We could calculate it for you, but the number of students participating in the fall is pretty high. And so it is the nature of how it operates. Now, they do a lot of fundraising. I'm sure they've knocked on your doors.
Yeah.
And so, they are fundraising for supplemental things. So it's not a total free ride, but the stuff that goes with it, the coaches' salaries, the uniforms, the essential uniforms. So we don't go above and beyond with, sneakers and all these other things. You just provide what's necessary for the uniform, transportation. And, again, because of our location being fairly far in the southern tier of the state and a smaller school, we have to travel quite a bit. So we're playing teams that are far away and more miles and longer to get there. So that adds costs. So all of these things kind of come to bear in the cost that you're looking at.
The reality is it's a perennial debate. You're going to have people in town who think there should be user fees, but the school board policy currently is that there are none.
Right, but I'm not on the school board, so.
No, I understand. I understand.
When you're asking me as a taxpayer to pay this,
No,
and the parents aren't paying any of it, except for their taxes.
I'm not trying to advocate either way. I'm just saying right now
I'm just-
that it's an annual, we debate this every year. But the reality is you'll have people who are ardent supporters of school pays everything, taxpayers pay everything, and you'll have those who feel that there should be a parental involvement. So I don't know which is the right way to go.
Well, I mean, ultimately, if you're concerned about it, right, when we vote, make a motion.
Yep.
Right. and
Well,
that's-
oh yeah.
All right,
Well, that's what we
so
do.
that's the way to, that's the way to handle it. I mean, we can debate it all night, but.
No, I'm not trying to debate at all. I'm actually trying to get, I'm not involved in this stuff. I don't,
Right.
know.
No,
So
you're-
when-
It's
if I
hard to
don't know
know
it-
when you're on the outside. So
So when I ask a question, I'm not casting a judgment.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
asking a question so I can get the answers to make a vote.
No, and I understand that. I think one, for me, athletics, band, drama, all of those things, kids shouldn't have to pay necessarily for. I do think as a community, it's really important, one, to support kids in their growth, and their growth is academic, but also if you're a music student, you're also a math student. And so these things tie together in a lot of different ways. And as Mike said just a moment ago, I think if we don't support the co-curriculars for students, Litchfield becomes a less attractive place to live in some ways. And I also think it's important for kids overall in their developing to be better human beings, whether they're a teammate or they're playing the piano next to a student who's playing a saxophone. That's just really important human development for people. So I think it's imperative for communities to support that.
I don't want to get into a greater debate, but I do think it's interesting that you say school music and stuff, because I know I have to pay for a music rental.
Mhm.
So I mean, so
Mhm.
parents do contribute to the music education of their children.
Well, and the baseball players play for their gloves.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just saying, it's
Yeah.
not a,
It's all part of the whole student, it's the whole student thing. And when I was on the staff at
That's a little less
CHS for
expensive than
baseball,
saxophone, though.
we did things like we made the kids maintain the field. I mean, Coach Gorham and I had the
500.
kids out there raking it and
2500.
dragging it and, whether it's painting the fence or, installing the fence. My son did it for a senior project. Roofs on the dugouts. This stuff I think it does a good job for the kids, rounding them out and making them better students and overall better people. And whether it's music or sports or whatever, I think it's part of the whole student.
right. But we're gonna go in circles, and we've got a lot of pages to cover.
But keep in mind that connection to the academics. So all the student athletes by NHIAA regulations are required to keep their grades up. They're required to have passing grades. And so there is that other hook for students who are, I want to be on the basketball team, so I better learn algebra. And so, keep all these pieces. It's all interconnected. It's all part of the whole child approach.
And we do that with co-curriculars as well, so that you have to be academically eligible to be in the theater production.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Go through the budget though.
Okay.
What page are we on?
Well, we were on 18 and 19, but I think we've covered a bunch of these through various discussions.
I just want a hat tip to the school board for that reduction of 4,900 in the supply line.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I watched the whole, it was intense. But I think it makes sense.
All right, so 21. Covered a lot of that. It's all related.
So I kind of had a question about the additional equipment for the weight room.
Mhm.
So what is that? So it's 4,000. Just sort of like plans going forward. Like I think we're trying to move a lot to like if there's additional equipment needed,
Sure.
replacement equipment, plan.
So-
Is it three? Is it three every three? Is it going to be up? Is it now the new standard is 4,000 every? Just to try to
Correct.
get a bigger
No.
picture.
It's a great question. You'll see actually with the new weight room equipment and the kettlebells, we had our floor replaced in our weight room this year, which is awesome. Much better, safer, cleaner. And in the doing that, Josh, our athletic director, did a nice job of cleaning out stuff and removing things and whatnot. One of the things we found is for our current set of kettlebells, we don't have a rack for them. So they're strewn all over the floor in the various places where they should not be. It's unsafe, dangerous.
Gotcha.
So one, that's in the PE budget, which is a rack for those.
Yeah.
But the other piece of this is that when you have 20 students in there and you have 20 kettlebells, you don't have the opportunity to have 20 students working. They have to shift them around, share them, and it becomes dangerous, unsafe. This way, it's a little bit easier to manage students in a pretty cleared out weight room now. So that's why that's there. I can't anticipate buying any more kettlebells or things of that nature. That should be done for a while.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we'll go on to move from sports and go to 22, 23, which is guidance services.
A lot of this is very similar.
Any questions? We'll go on to 24, 25.
Mobile first aid station in the nursing, under nursing.
Which one?
Which line?
734 equipment additional under the nurse services.
So there are two parts to that. One is we need a new locking file cabinet, fireproof file cabinet for student records. And the second one is a trauma bag. If we have a catastrophic event with the student, this is a wheeled bag that can handle lots of things for 5 to 10 minutes or however long, 3 minutes when the Litchfield Fire Department gets there. It's a trauma bag. So it'll have within it replaceable things you might use in the case of a significant student emergency. The nurse currently carries a small bag, but you have a kid who breaks his leg or does something really challenging. We've got some additional tools for that.
All right. 26, 27. '28, '29. I think it's at 30, 31. Okay, nope, it's not quite finished yet. Keeps going. 35, right.
So under, it's page 27, the mobile shelving for in the library. So this is under 737 replacement.
Yep.
It's about 3,400.
Yep.
So it's replacement to, it says to feature new books and promote monthly themes.
Sure.
Mm,
We're
Is it new? So it's on the top of page 27.
correct. So it is, one of the things you'll find is libraries are changing from what they used to be. So what we've done is, you don't have the same stationery, everything's always in the same place in the same area. So we've had this process going for the last couple of years of making it a more, an easier to move facility so students can group up, we can move shelving around, we can create large spaces, do all these things. So Julie Green has done a terrific job of sort of culling out things that we haven't been using in years, creating more space, but different kinds of space. So now what we want is movable shelves so we can bring a stand to the front of the library, highlight great books or new books or young fiction or whatever it might be, but also have that available to move other spaces so we can be a little bit more flexible about how we use the various spaces. And we're doing that quite a bit, not just with student groups and teachers coming in, but with faculty and staff meetings and things like that. So,
How about 737 furniture replacement?
So, which item in there? The 30 desks and chairs? Yeah, so
Media lab.
connected to the library, we have our media center. And we actually took a tour through there. This is a room that was formerly set up as a computer lab. So it has literally 20-year-old computer desks with a slot for everything and their particle board, they're clunky and unwieldy. And then we have a bunch of hydraulic chairs that are literally 20 years old with broken backs, and the hydraulics don't work. It is time to clean that stuff out, move it out, and make that room a usable space for classes to come in, for if we need to schedule classes in there, all of those things. It's a lifetime ready to go.
Okay.
Yep.
So 28, 29. Thirty, 31.
All right. Yeah, so on 31, and I appreciate in your summary, you gave a good explanation of some of the increases for graduation.
Yep.
It looked like, and some of these make a lot of sense. But then there's some things that are new. So like the very last line on 31, like the boutonnieres, are those like the flowers?
Little flowers for graduation. Yep.
So that seemed like a new.
Yeah. I think we've given them out in the past. They may not
Just
have
not have been
clearly-
budgeted that
They
way.
may not have been
separate.
shown there. Yep. It is something that we bought.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I know some of the stuff I'm picking at, but I think it's important though to look. A lot of times we can look at just like compared to last year, but a lot of the big increases last year, there was one-time purchases. So now this year it's like there's more one-time purchases. It's important to look at the bigger.
Sure.
That's all I'm trying to do.
All right, 32, 33. This is one of the big ones for the increase. And it's $20,000 increase despite a board reduction of $20,000. That's,
So my new athletic director budgeted heavily for initially. And so that's where that $100,000 came in. Having said that, you will not see the increase in this year's budget. And we're already tracking our transportation very carefully right now because for the fall sports season, we're up way over where we thought we would be at the moment. So one of the things we really have to be attentive to is what the increase is going to be next year. And it was about 23% roughly.
The rate
this
from
year.
the rate from last year to this year in the new contract was about a 21% increase in that rate for co-curricular athletic transportation.
Is this contracted through First Student still? First Student?
Yeah.
And this is above and beyond the other transportation expenses that we have.
It has
for-
its own rate, its own individualized rate. So at one point when we initially negotiated it, it was, what did we do? We did mileage plus.
Mhm.
And of course, when you play most of your games in Canada, that's probably not a good idea to go with that rate. But some initial review of it, it looked like it could be beneficial. Turned out no. So we were billed by that rate for the first couple months. And then we went back, opened it back up and amended it back to the prior framework, which is a straight hourly rate. But that's where we saw the increase to this year.
So there's no longer a mileage component. It's
No.
so you're comparing two different contracts really. So it's an hour plus mileage instead of just straight up hour. So the mileage is kind of wrapped into the hourly cost.
Yeah, the mileage and the wait time was killing us in the
Yeah.
initial.
My dad drives a bus. I completely understand.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a lot. All right.
That's a hard sell.
You gotta keep in mind too, when you have multiple sports going late into the playoffs, you have a lot of additional games unless you have home games.
But again, it's back to the comment that I made a few moments ago, right? Just look at this budget, 2017, $57,000, 2018, 61, 2019, 69. Right now, we're up, $84,000, call it, right? That's a big jump over a very short period. We still had sports.
Mhm.
We still had transportation for all these students. In fact, now we have less students, right, going through the schools.
But the rate you
The
pay
bus
for the
itself.
bus isn't based
So
on
the
student count.
bus contracts have gone up $35,000
Wow.
in that period.
So remember
That's
that
insane.
we have a new bus contract this year, right? So we put this out to bid last year. We had how many bids?
Two.
Two.
We had two. We had Goffstown truck and First Student. First Student came in significantly cheaper than.
Do we still piggyback with Nashua?
So First Student is operated out of the Nashua yard,
Right.
but there are buses.
Right.
So
But
we're
my
not-
understanding is we used to negotiate with them to better leverage the.
They will send buses from Hudson or Nashua because they're under First Student as well. So you might see a Nashua or a Hudson bus in town, but that's usually for like a specific run. That
Okay.
bus is available that day. They send that. So
Okay. That's a lot to think about. I don't think we're going to solve that one tonight, but we can think about it.
let's keep in mind too, I mean, and we can look back at a history of that. And I do understand the budget has gone up significantly in that area. However, since I've been here, I don't think it's ever been underspent. So if you don't have the money in the line, you're finding it somewhere else and sacrificing somewhere
Right.
else.
And we saw that in 2019, we budgeted 67 and ended up spending 69.
Right. But then we just return to that perennial debate of who should pay for it.
Mhm.
So, but we're not going to solve that tonight. So let's move on to the next 34, 35. So I think the question you had asked for like an itemized per item, right? Is that what you were looking for?
Well, last year we had it, so instead of it all being zero, it was, each one was listed and you could see if that's possible. It's not a huge deal breaker, but I just feel like it is helpful to know, especially when it gets down to co-curricular.
In order to recalculate, I recalculated as a lump sum and I
Okay.
zeroed out the numbers. Instead of spending 8 hours
All right, that's fine.
recalculating each individual item, I did it as a lump.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for CHS while we have them here? Hearing none, thank you.
Great, thank you.
That's what.
Next one's a little shorter.
That's good. Well, no. Salaries, benefits is the biggest.
You got that right?
That's nonsense.
The next school is a little shorter.
Hmm?
Doesn't make it any less important, but the number of pages to go
That
through.
one's one of the big ones.
So Principal Lecklider from the middle school. Good evening.
Good
Will
evening.
walk us right through his school board approved budget.
All right, so a couple quick things. I have a handout with hole punches, I will just say. I'm going to send those around, Mr. Lonigan. And the
Already
budget
better.
is down this year. Also, the budget is down, so.
3 hole punches and the budget is down.
Yeah.
What can I ask you next?
Thompson, you got a bar pretty high you gotta reach for. I hope you brought coffee.
Actually, I had.
Give extra. Sorry.
Yeah.
Take one.
We got tons of extras if anyone in the crowd is so inclined.
Perfect.
Sorry. Okay. The other thing was just in terms of supplies. I know the question was asked. I didn't know exactly what the breakdown, what would be most helpful. So I'm just going to give you a handout in LMS Blue. These are just some things that go into our supplies. I can break these out, itemize them, whatever you need. So actually, I'll send those around as well.
One of each color. That's a different color.
No holes in this one.
Fail.
Oh, you're supposed to take care of that.
Do you like that? They couldn't set the bar too high.
Yeah, right.
You got a chance.
Yeah. Okay, well, good evening. I'm going to just, as has been done, I'm going to start with just an overview, summary sort of the year and of the budget coming up. So it's been a real exciting year. We continue our one-to-one rollout. It's not a rollout anymore. It's happening. It's been going really well. But overall, the focus at LMS on STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics has just taken on a lot of life over the last several years. And not only during the day programming and things kids are doing in our tech ed STEAM class and our computer class and other classes, science classes, but also co-curriculars. Our Lego robotics program has really grown a lot over the last few years. They're not only are they competing, they're competing at a very high level now. Last year we had 3 out of 4 teams, all 4 teams at the state and level and receiving recognitions there. So it's been really exciting. And I know we've talked over the years about STEAM programming here at this table and Project Lead the Way, various things there. So we'll see some of that tonight in the budget. The other thing I wanted to mention before I get into the specific drivers of the budget is just in general enrollment at LMS over the summer. We saw a very large, I know Dr. Jetty alluded to this, that I would mention this. I am mentioning it, that there was just a significant explosion of enrollment over the summer. So roughly 20 students more than we thought we would have this fall. And there's a few areas we've really seen that, 6th and 7th grade in particular. But also in our 5th grade, we have 94 students. We were expecting 88, I believe, for the fall. So as we plan ahead, next year, the impact is really, we're not going to see a huge decline. We will see about, I would, and I'm really not comfortable. Right now, some of the numbers I'm using are on actuals. The trend has been growth. The trend has been growth over the summer. So, that number for 7th to 8th grade, I believe, is at 80 in the projections. That number's already at 94. So, and that could grow over the next year. So, in other words, our numbers are not shifting significantly for next year. Some of the drivers for the budget, and last year it was actually at this table that we had the conversation around agendas in our supply line. This year, after that conversation, we had a lot of conversations over the year as a staff, and we are going to phase out some of those paper agendas that we're using. We're trying to embed more digital focus into our students' lives. And it doesn't work for every student, but we're going to phase it down from 7th and 8th grade. So this year we'll phase it out in 7th and 8th grade. We will still order agendas, even for some 7th and 8th graders who need that support. But that you'll see that reflected in the supply line 610. The other that was mentioned here just a little bit ago is Learning Commons. So Learning Commons, not only is it a place in the building, it really is a philosophy around library and how we do library. We want it to be the center of learning in the building, the Learning Commons. So it's not just books on a shelf. It's a place where students can interact, they can be creative, they can problem solve, and we continue to really polish that model, I guess. And so in terms of the actual budget impact, I think the last leg of this is some shelving that we're doing. If you're on the tour, you've been in our library, along the right side, if you go down the gym hallway, along the wall in the library are some old shelves that, it looks like your typical old school library. We want the books we want to have more mobility around the shelving there. So that's the last leg, and you'll see that under the library section of the budget. And then we also have some funding for tutoring. Our RTI, so we might have talked about RTI, response intervention, really is personalizing learning, looking at our students' individualized needs. Some of our students that struggle, we need some more support in our guidance area. And so you'll see that reflected in 504 tutoring. 504s are plans for students who have specific needs that need some accommodations. And so it's in that area which is under guidance. And then there's some specific increases and decreases, which I can highlight and discuss as we get into the budget.
All right. Any questions before we jump in? All right, so just like with CHS, I guess we'll go page by page and hopefully have more questions. So starting with page 1. So I assume that's similar with the leases, right? It's part of the combining.
So LMS regular ed is down $31.50. I'm just reading this for the folks at home that aren't seeing what we're looking at. Our education is up $5 and foreign languages are level funded.
All right, so hearing no questions on page 1, let's go to 2 and 3.
That is up $18. General and consumer science up $114. Technical education up $167 and math education up $4.
So on 650 on page 2, the Excello, or how, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Is this a new aspect? Are we replacing something?
So yeah, I believe that was moved from a computer line over to fax. That has been used for a while. It's a career for students to explore different careers. They do a career day in 8th grade and it goes along with that. So I believe that was moved from another part of the budget.
Just to make it more.
Part of the budget. Yeah, because it's specific to fax.
Thanks. So on page 2, the piano accompanist, is that a new service? Line 330 on page 2.
Yeah, so with our choral program, we've had, from time to time, we've been able to do that internally. It's become more and more of a challenge over the last few years. And we've had quite a bit of growth in our choral program the last couple of years. So it has become more of something we feel like we need to put that in there. We're just sort of floating along year to year. And like I say, it was a big challenge last year. And to a point where it was like the day before the concert, he was scrambling around for an accompanist, and having that funding there will definitely help support what he needs for his concerts. It's for the concerts.
What is the role of a piano accompanist?
So when the chorus is,
Are they actually playing the
he's
piano?
directing, and the chorus is,
Okay.
the chorus is singing, he's playing. Or whoever the accompanist is playing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can anyone play piano?
My son hopes to eventually, but not yet.
Do re mi.
Chopsticks. So on page 3, the supplies 610, if we just, is that an increase in the Project Lead the Way, or that we use purchasing more refill kits?
Okay, yeah. So that was one of the things that I put as an increase. So what we've seen over this budget going into the refill kits. So Project Lead the Way, if you haven't been at the table, Project Lead the Way is one of the main resources we use for our STEAM, our science programming. And so we bought the kits years ago, and now it's sustaining them with these refill kits. They're very dynamic units, hands-on, a lot of critical thinking and creativity, as I mentioned, is a big focus in our budget. This is the refill kits, and they've increased in price this year. I haven't seen an increase for the last couple of years in the refill kits, 2 or 3 years, but this year there was an increase. So that was reflected there. Some of this is technology-based stuff. So it's like wiring and things like that that are a little more money.
Any other questions on 2 and 3? Moving on to 4 and 5.
So science is up 1298 overall with those refill kits. Social studies is down $314. Reading instruction is down $416.
So actually, I had a question on 3. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So this is under the music education, 734 equipment additional. So the dollar amounts changed slightly, but the text underneath was exactly the same as last year's. So I'm not sure. It made it sound, it wasn't clear. Is it the same ask or?
They're saying student keyboards, right? So replacement of student keyboards. There's
So the, let's see. Piano and amplifier. Yeah, I don't have last year's justification.
Yeah, so
for
last
it.
year, so it's the same exact text, and then it was 723 for the keyboards and 234 for the PA system. So I don't know if the text just didn't, the explanation just didn't.
Yeah,
get
I think that piece at the
copied
top
over.
is probably the last year that we can delete. Yeah, I think that must have carried over from last year.
You just ask for clarification, and I'm sure he'll be.
Yeah,
more than
I'll check on that.
Yeah, it was just,
Yeah.
it just didn't line up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So 4 and 5. All right. Moving on to 6 and 7. So this is where you see line 330 on page 6. You were talking about the 504 tutors, correct?
Yep.
All right. Moving on to, so this will be the last on line page 7, 737 for the Learning Commons. That piece of furniture completes the outfitting of that room. area?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, any other questions on 6 and 7? Hearing none, moving on to 8 and 9. All right, moving on to page 10. Right. Are there any other questions that have not been asked yet regarding any of the LMS budget? All right.
So I wasn't, for the transportation, and not to have the same conversation again, I'm just curious, because I can see how we added for that increase. So we're confident that with the addition from the board on 519 on co-curricular and athletic, because there was they had added in 500 and then about 950. So I'm just curious why the 2.49.
What's that?
So
The 2.49% increase is the increase in the contractual increase for the rate between 20 and 21. It has the big jump and then it levels out for the remaining years of the contract.
thank you.
So why did the board add $957 to the transportation budget?
It's all based on the calculations that I did recalculating. I went back, applied the 21% increase to
Okay.
what was budgeted, and then added the 2.4. So just for consistency of my methodology of calculating it, we did additions and subtractions out of each.
All right, so to align it with the contract expectations. Gotcha. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anything comes up, we'll be sure to pass it along.
Sure, thanks.
Now, Principal Thompson will join us to walk us through the budget for Griffin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have terrible. Oh, terrible. It is.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
It might come up.
Thank you for the 3-hole punch.
Either way, you're welcome.
Let me lead with it.
And I hope you appreciate that we're down overall at the bottom line.
I also appreciate that as well, yes.
So coming at you from the other way, and Scott and I just conferred, we're going to reverse the way we were going to do this because I think it's going to come up anyway. So let's just head it off. So the sheet coming at you is actually the proposed position piece. And it's really critical because kindergarten is a number that we have our eye on. And so I want to talk with the budget committee a little bit about what we're thinking.
Okay.
So wait till the sheets get all the way around.
Suspense is killing me.
All right, so at the top of the sheet, you can see that there is the possibility that we're going to have to add a 5th kindergarten teacher. And so you can see the kindergarten teacher and the salary.
Which is technically already in this year's budget.
This is our dilemma, right?
Okay.
So the reason it says positions kept in salaries and benefits is that the current budget, we budgeted for the 5th kindergarten.
Mhm.
Based on class sizes, if we had hit 76 students during the summer, we would have added that position. But we had an agreement that if we didn't hit that trigger, we wouldn't add that position. And we have now hit the 76. I think we're at 77.
77.
Yep. But it's too late in the year to add that position. We're not going to move everybody around and
Mhm.
fund a new classroom at this point. Okay. So we honored the commitment that we had. We didn't hit it by the end of July, and we said we're plugging ahead with the 4 teachers that we currently have. So we have raised and appropriated that money, and it's sitting in our budget, but we have not spent it. If you look at the class size enrollment, we're right there again. We're predicting, I think, 81 for next year. That would be above the 76. And so the board is exploring what are the best ways to proceed relative to the money. We have it. we're considering, and this is where we want your advice. We want you to sort of work with us in partnership on how to proceed on this one, what the best way is, hoping that we do it in unison with a recommendation to the taxpayers that's kind of united and makes sense. So one thought we had is that this might be a perennial problem.
Yeah.
So if we budget for next year and we don't need it, we might have the same enrollment issue the year after. Eventually we're going to need that fifth position maybe, and we're just going to keep raising that money year after year, returning it, and then possibly using it in 1 year. So we've explored the concept of establishing a kindergarten trust fund, taking the money we've already raised, asking the taxpayers, we already have it in the bank, if you would, let us just put it into this trust fund with the understanding we would use it if we hit the cap and needed it. So that's one possibility. Another is that we just roll this over and raise it again. And it's sort of like we return the taxes only to collect them back again.
We had this discussion on the town side, so yes, we've, and at least, because we do the similar thing for the welfare, is not the PC, but the support. And we ended up doing a fund similar to what you're discussing, because every year we raise the same amount and then we don't spend it. So then the next year you raise it again, and what's not spent goes into the general fund. So I think it's great because the board, this group of people has already had a similar discussion. So it's great to hear that you guys are having one too.
And so we're really looking, and we don't need an answer tonight. We have time to figure this out. But, one possibility is to structure a warrant article that we would like to have both board and budget committee support on, to take the money that we already have, put it in this capital reserve fund. But that involves us cutting it out of the budget and not having it there, right? So if the voters say no to that and we don't have it, and we have 76 students next July, we're in the hole $105,000 because we would not have that money, right? So that's
Yeah.
Why is that?
Factor.
Wouldn't it be part of the budget?
Well-
If the warrant fails, it's still in the budget,
Right. We currently,
right?
nope. Let me say it again.
it would be,
Yeah.
If we say we want to take the money out of this year's budget and put it in a capital reserve, and doing so means that we remove this from the budget, so we're not asking for the money.
Yeah.
And then the voters say no to the capital reserve, and it's not in the budget,
I see.
that's when 76 students are going to arrive, and we're going to be in a pickle. So that's the piece that, we would have to be very united with the taxpayers to say, look, we already have the money. Let us just park it until it's needed. And, and we've taken it out of the budget in good faith that you're going to support this initiative, right? So a strong vote from the budget committee and talking about this, I think will go a long way toward doing it. So it's just conceptual at this point. And the other approach is that we, again, looking at the projections, we would have to add it in the budget if we don't do the capital reserve approach, and raise that money again with the agreement that we would only use it if we hit that trigger number by the point that we could actually reasonably roll it out.
so I have one very practical question. Do we have room for a fifth kindergarten? Because you're looking at adding a fifth, third grade. You're already tight on space. Can you physically add 2 classrooms to that building? Or do we consider that maybe 76 isn't the right number and 78 is okay for 4 teachers?
So I'm going to look to the principal, because we've had that many in there before, and you're right, it creates a space needs. There are trade-offs that have to occur in order to incorporate in that teacher. And you've already looked down the chart, because if you look what's in yellow, there are 2 positions that the board voted to recommend. So a GMS third grade teacher is one of those, and that's based on class size. So that would be an increase of 1 in order to accommodate the students who are coming up. And the other is a custodial position at the high school. And we'll talk about that one separately, because I want to do the GMS positions. But right now it's that kindergarten position, and it's the third grade. So how would you accommodate them?
Well, so the plan this year was if we needed to have a fifth kindergarten classroom, the most likely plan was that we would have to move one of the preschool classrooms out of where the kindergartens used to be in the 2-classroom portable back to room 25 and find new homes for the 5 professionals who share that space. But I don't.
Which professionals are in that space?
So we have the
tutors?
ESOL teacher.
Mhm.
We have now 2 Title I tutors, one who works primarily in kindergarten. Actually, I think exclusively in kindergarten. So for example, that teacher could move to the kindergarten because she works there primarily. We have a math tutor, a district math tutor, and we have the enrichment program.
Mhm.
So those 5 positions.
Everybody here knows my position on that. So, moving the 5 out of there, you would move, where would they go?
So,
Oh, 'cause-
well, so that becomes the next piece of the, the dominoes. Right.
Mhm.
So one possibility was that we would have to give up the music room. That would be a possibility. And that's what I would see if we had a 5th grade, a 5th kindergarten and a 3rd
Right.
grade classroom, because that's down in the 2nd grade wing. This year, we reduced grade 3 by 1 classroom because of the numbers, and then increased grade 2 by 1 because of the numbers. So it's kind of a wash. That would be one possibility, is we'd have to put music on a cart. In the past, people often ask, say, well, we used to have. One possibility that I've kicked out is we're looking at more of a tech integration model. We currently have a computer lab that had been a 2nd grade classroom. If we move more to a tech integration model, I see technology as something, I don't think we all agree on this, but I see that as something that is portable and could be delivered in classrooms. Every classroom has a computer. We have increased number of Chromebooks now. Grade 4 has 1 to 2, meaning 1 Chromebook for every 2 students. Grade 3 and the other classes have a cart shared among the classrooms. I see that as fairly mobile. So the other thing we'd have to look at is, I guess those are the 2 places that I would see. Art has been on the cart. Here's the problem, and it's always going to be a trade-off. The more sophisticated our specialist programs become, the more difficult it is to move them around.
Right.
But we've done it. Even with the use of technology in music, Mrs. LaBelle has been on the cart and been able to hook up to the smart boards in the classrooms. And it's not convenient, but it's been doable. So I don't have another answer. You toured the building. I mean, we don't have any rooms sitting empty, so.
That's my concern, having had it.
Carrie, we need to be on the budget, and this is a school board and
But-
school issue. We don't need to.
Then don't ask me for my opinion. I thought I was asked for my opinion.
I think we were.
You asked a question about how
How we're gonna do classroom.
the 5th grade would be added in.
Do
It's
you
not
wa-
quite related to the
It's not
budget. It's
related.
more,
Okay.
I think it would be part
So-
of the capital planning and other things.
So if you don't want my support on whether or not to add these positions, then you're right, we don't need to have this discussion.
If your support is the school deciding which classrooms to go in, that's 2 different conversations, though. That's nothing to do with the budget. That's the school's responsibility to find the classrooms.
But my decision may be informed based on what the plan is.
I think that's wrong.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but that's how I make decisions.
All right,
With
can we call the
information.
question?
Sure. Absolutely. So what would you like?
Are we calling about?
The question is about the teacher, right? And the budget committee's support of that? Is that,
Yeah, and honestly,
How to go
for the
forward.
budget committee to think about it, I don't think
Okay.
we don't need a decision tonight. We have plenty of time. It's really about, would you prefer to see us take the money that we already have in the bank and park that? Or do we raise it again? Because we're bellied right up to that number and it's gonna stay an issue. And then when it happens, dominoes are gonna fall and it's gonna be a problem for Scott. But he'll figure that out. So, and then I'm gonna hold, well, I guess I do wanna talk about the 3rd grade teacher because that's the other one that based on class size, the 2nd grade class, the current 2nd grade class is large. And so as they move up to 3rd graders. we're
They
gonna
currently
need-
have 5. The current 3rd grade has 4, is what you're saying, right?
That's correct.
So it may take the 5 second grade and move it into 5 third grade classes.
Correct. Yep, and that will allow us to meet class size requirements. And there is a shift that occurs in fourth grade that allows us to
23.
have fewer students per teacher. So that's how we're able to maintain that number. Yep. So as we walk through the budget, you're going to hear all of this, and I will come back to talk about, you can see the board did not accept some recommendations. They were pretty conservative on this, but I want to walk through what they did so that you understand that at a later time. So why don't we hit the GMS
Okay.
overview?
We've just talked about enrollment. I actually begin talking about enrollment. I would also like to share that as of today, grade 2 you just asked about, we hit 100 students in grade 2 as of this week. So we currently have, including our projections don't typically include pre-K and K because they're funded in separate lines. I think that's the historic reason. But pre-K through 4, we have 477 students at GMS as of today. The other thing is that now that we have 2 years of data for full-day kindergarten and the district is doing 5-year projections, we are projecting that over the next 3 additional years, so up to 2022-23, we will be gaining 43 students at the elementary level. So space is a continued concern at GMS for sure. Then my second paragraph is really about the kindergarten teacher that we just talked about, and also about the need for an additional grade 3 teacher. We do have a fairly stable budget overall for fiscal year 2021 at GMS. As I said, the bottom line is actually reduced, even though we have more students. I did meet with all of the directors to talk about the places that the GMS budget is impacted by their budgets. So I think we're well coordinated. This summary was revised after the board made a decision, and I'll talk more about that when I get to the line, to add funding to pay for the festival, but not Canopy Lake Park for Great East Festival for the chorus, which is one of our primary extracurricular or co-curricular activities at GMS. We don't have a lot, but we have 75 third and fourth graders. Last time I checked, it may have varied a little, but that's what it is. As far as budget drivers, I'm not going to actually talk about the budget driver section because those are repeated under key variances. There were only 3 items where we went up more than $1,000 from last year. And there were 4 items where we went down more than $1,000 for last year. And I would like to talk about 610 accounts. When we go through our budget, you'll see that most of those are based on a per student spending with a 1.5% cost of living increase. And we use actual numbers. Our budget is reviewed very early. We began inputting in September 13th, so we used the numbers we had for those numbers as of, I can see that answer the question. Yes. So September 13th, we began inputting our budget, and we use current enrollment. So when you see something that says 1 through 4, it's the numbers we had at that time, because we don't have official count till October 1st. But our budget was due prior to that, and I actually met with the superintendent and business administrator on October 3rd. So that's where our numbers come from. Okay. The exceptions to the per student cost are the PE supplies, because those are really used by all students. It's a little bit different. Guidance, the nurse, and the library. So those ones will be reflected differently. I didn't talk about key variances, skipped over that. So the increase lines, there were 3. One is additional furniture. We have, as we saw on the tour, many historical periods of construction in our building. And I say that because some of the newer classrooms you saw have built-in storage. Some of the older classrooms, like in the first grade wing, they have none built in. So we have to rely on furniture and that kind of thing. So the additional furniture increase of $1,278 is for a room with little storage. And there's also a request in there for 2 standing desks I'll talk a little more about. Line 2120-330 is services for teacher of the deaf and tutoring. And that's an increase of $1,716 dollars. That is for known students who require that service. And then student activities, dues and fees, we increased by $2,310 for Lego Teams registration, a small increase, and also the Grady's Festival fees for the chorus. And then the decreases in the furniture line, and I'll highlight all of these when we get to them. We are continuing replacement of old and kind of beat up desks and chairs and tables, that kind of thing. But we wanted to address as many as we could. So we talked to them and we said, if we had to choose, would you rather have new desks or chairs? The desk is what the students see all day and they write on and they touch. The chair is just, they're sitting on it. So we focused on desks. We actually don't have new chairs, but we thought that would help students have a better environment. The replacement of art furniture, that line has gone down quite a bit because that was a one-time expense last year, so we've taken that out. The cost of reading supplies has decreased by $1,500 to meet our needs as put forward by our reading specialist. And there's a line for recess supplies and that kind of thing. And last year we got lunch carts, those wagons that you see in the school that the kids now, instead of carrying a bucket, those are taken out, and that was a reduction of $1,084. So those are the main changes as we go through. Okay.
So, start with page 1.
On that page, there are 2 things I just mentioned. The furniture additional, the $1,278, that's an increase. And then the furniture replacement is increased.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, page 2 and 3.
So regular ed is up 404. Art ed is down 2,881. Phys ed is up 49.
All right, hearing none, pages 4 and 5.
Math is 0. Music is down 156. Science is up 133. Social studies is down 342. Reading is down 1,359. Kindergarten down 761.
All right, hearing none, 6 and 7.
Can I just point out that the kindergarten budget does include all of the costs that we talked about for that 5th classroom? So if those were taken out, there would actually be a substantial reduction. That's on page 5.
And that's the second year it's included.
Yeah. Right. So it's not showing as an increase because it was also in the current budget.
Pages 6 and 7. So the Canopy Lake is only for the registration of the event.
Yes, it's the cost when
For
a
the
Grady's,
festival.
yes,
The Grady's
Grady's
Festival, not Canopy
Festival,
Right.
they, it's $60 per student,
Mhm.
and you can actually pay for only one of those, and it's $30 for either one. So this is $30 for 75 students to attend the festival. They'd have to do we'd have to find other funding sources for the Canopy Lake Park half.
Yeah, the letter she sends home every year you join the course. Works great. So, all right, so, but that's a new because in the past that was parent funded, so now we're moving to school funded.
Parent funded, and the PTO had actually funded some of it. They still have, for this current year, I think it's $750 to help with the cost. But with 75 kids and it's $4,200, it doesn't really cover much. And I think and I know we all also have money specifically for transportation in our transportation line for that trip.
Okay. Any other questions on 6 and 7? So on page 7, line 430, we have a potential repair. Do we often use this, or is it every year a potential and may or may not get spent?
I'm sorry, what line are you looking?
Line 430, GMS nurse, there's a
Oh,
potential
the
repair.
potential repair. So it needs to be repaired. I believe this actual cost 1920 is what we're spending this year. So I think that's where that $215 came from.
I just get nervous when I see potential, because in which case I'd rather start a repair fund and hit that when needed rather than raise the taxes every year for something that may or may not happen. So I caution against the use of the word potential.
Okay.
If it's an actual expense, that's one thing, but if it's a maybe, well, what's the odds? 25%? Every 4 years we get it, then maybe we have a fund that you hit when you use it and replenish as needed rather than.
Technically, isn't every repair line potential? You don't know.
Again,
You don't know from year to year what's.
But in the grand scheme of things, they even out, right? So sometimes you'll have this one, but not this one. But if I'm funding both of them, then I'm overfunding my repairs. So I would like to know, is it something we're actually going to see, or is it 25% chance, 50%? What is the potential?
So if I look at the 19 actual, it was 125.
Mm-hmm.
And
17 and 18 are 0 and 0.
yes,
So
I think, I do believe we actually got a new audiometer.
Wasn't that donated? I vaguely remember
Yes, I
something being
believe it
donated,
was. Yeah.
I think that's new in the last couple of years.
all right, just those things are the kinds of things that are going to stand out to me at least. All right, anything else on 6 and 7? All right, 8 and 9. All right, hearing none, 9 and 10. 9, 10 and 1, I guess. Two and, do you have a question?
Good.
I thought I heard.
Just a
Right.
general question, but
All
go
right,
ahead.
go ahead.
If you have
I'm
a
gonna
question
move to
about
2
the
and
pages
3.
in the budget, by all means.
I'm going to pages 2 and 3, unless you have a question before that.
Nope, go
All
ahead.
right, 2 and 3.
Pages 2 and 3?
Pages 2. I have, mine moves on
Back.
to,
So back to
From
pages
10.
2 and 3.
so I have
It's only
pages.
10 pages.
Well, then I have a double set.
Shifting budgets.
I have a double set then.
Same budget?
I have.
Are we still in GMS or?
What happened?
I don't know. Are we still,
Twice?
Madam Chairman, are we still in GMS pages 2 and 3?
We were
I have two
grabbing them as they
copies.
were coming and just
I have-
sticking them in the books.
I have 2 copies in the same one, so I thought it was just like, okay,
They're
there's one.
special.
So you want to go back to the page?
No, I'm.
Well, I thought we were already 10, and it was another subsection of page of GMS. I was like, I don't know.
Trying to see if you were paying attention.
What's your general question?
10 and 1.
My general question is when we were walking through the school, right?
Yep.
We in all the schools and all the walkthroughs that we've done, we talked about key priorities, right? Objectives.
Yep.
One of the things that was mentioned was a temporary wall that was second grade classroom.
Room 1 and 2.
Could be wrong, right?
Yep.
Is that in this budget?
It's again in the building and grounds.
Okay.
I believe it is still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything that's building related, it never shows up in my operating.
Understood.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
want to confirm.
So since we're done sooner than I thought on the GMS, are there any other questions related to the GMS budget? Because apparently I was prepared to go through it twice. So
Madam Chairman, I'm good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That moves us into food services.
So before we hit that, can I just go back to the positional one?
Yeah.
Because I hate to talk about half a page. I'm gonna hit the rest of it with you.
Okay.
You're set. Thank you.
Okay.
So we talked about the kindergarten position at the top. I'm going to walk right down this list. Principal Lecklider had asked about a fifth grade teacher. He's nervous about his numbers. He's already pointed out to you the fourth grade number has gone up. And so when that fourth grade comes up to the middle school, he's looking at an average of 23 and a half students, which we won't divide one, I promise you. We will have 24 and 23 to make that work. But he's right on the cusp. And again, he has seen that the projections we had for this year, they were just move-ins that took place this summer. So they proved not to be reliable. He and I debate the word explosion, but either way you slice it, there are more students at LMS than predicted. And so we went forward with that, and the board voted 0-4-1 on that. And the sense is that that we will be challenged to work with existing staff to figure out how to make all of that work. At GMS, there was a request to add additional hours to the administrative assistants, mainly because right now the office at GMS is not open the full time that we have students on buses. And so if there's an issue that a parent needs to call back in, or the buses are running around the town, a parent stops by, there's nobody there to receive that parent. And so the request from the principal is to add time for the administrative assistants. The board voted 0-5 not to do that, right? So they voted against it. And we are attempting to approach that through collective bargaining. We believe that staggering hours of the existing staff would be doable, but it's a collective bargaining situation because the way the bargaining language is written, we're not able to do that currently.
So this would be
However,
the
board
support
is-
staff though, right? Not the teachers.
This is for the administrative assistants.
Okay.
That's correct. But what our objective is, to be clear, and I think it's the right objective, is to make sure that when a 5-year-old is on a bus, and if that bus returns back, there's an adult in the office who can receive that student, and we don't currently have that. I mean, sometimes the principals are there, but not always. We need somebody assigned to be able to do that. So there was also a request from GMS for a library monitor, 5.5 hours a day. It's currently really covered by absolutely fabulous parent volunteers. However, that means we have massive turnover throughout the day in terms of who's providing that help. And so the request was to add a position to alleviate that turnover. And the board did not accept that either. So you can see that that was rejected by the board. Doesn't mean it's not a need. It's just that we're going to have to depend on the generous volunteers from the community to keep that going. Third grade teacher, I think we've addressed based on the enrollment numbers. And so we should be set on that. GMS also asked for a computer teacher. We currently have a half-time computer teacher. And so the effort was to expand that to a full-time position. You can see the board was a little split. There was a 1-4 vote. It didn't pass. We continue to try to figure out an integration model. I mean, what's the best way to proceed with the staffing that we have? And that's really something the board's going to have to continue to wrestle with in terms of how to use that.
And just one question on this. I recognize this is a board decision, but just what was the reasoning for fail? For the 4 members that voted no, why?
So I'm going to yield to a no.
I would say it was implementation, how it was going to be used. The feeling was computers are more in the classroom now. It's going more towards 1-to-1 and just exploring how it was going to be implemented and utilized.
Okay.
And I think from my point of view, that was a question. I think the days, don't want to get myself in trouble saying, I think the days of the standalone computer classroom aren't as important as how it's integrated in the classroom, and that's what we were really wondering.
There was also, I think that we're still at the philosophical, for some members, I think, there's still the philosophical at what age are students, does the computer technology become essential?
Mhm.
So, I mean, learning the basics of how to read and maybe using assistive technology to get there is one thing, but to be doing the work on the computer when you're in kindergarten, first and second grade might not be as realistic as, really focusing on the core learning, so that then in the older grades where we currently have the computer model, students would then go out to that, right? So it's a catch-22. I mean, students today seem to be very native on devices and accessing, but it's a philosophical piece the board is going to have to wrestle with.
Thank you.
We also asked for a 75% grounds position. Quite frankly, keeping up with the grounds is a huge task, right? And so I don't know how you feel about mowing your lawn, but you can see the amount of lawns we have to mow. And
I
we've got,
saw LMS 2 days before school started, so I can completely understand that request.
and tell me what that looked like.
I think that we decided jungle theme.
I think we hate it the day before.
Yeah.
So it's, the reality is our guys worked hard all summer long, and we have an additional summer help person, but it's one of those, it's like dirty laundry. You empty the bin out and you think you're done. And guess what? The kids came behind you and filled it up. Well, the grass kept growing too.
It was very
And
wet, wasn't it?
the ditch filled in with, leaves. And so it's just never ending with the amount. We had complaints about the field along GMS and the fence line. And so the guys got out there and they got that taken care of when they had an opportunity. And then we got compliments. It looks great. Thanks for getting that mowed down so that you can kind of see as you walk through there, let alone the fact, we're not just mowing lawns for aesthetic reasons. You can imagine ticks and other things that it's really important that we stay on top of this. So
then the question, similar to what Andrew had, is why did it fail 05?
I think the board was looking at the overall costs of all of these positions, and they just said, yeah, we understand it, but you have to say no to some things because you just can't do it all. And so you're looking at a 05 vote.
Obviously, I voted against that one. For me, it strictly came down to what I thought was more important: the extra custodian, voting for that or voting for the grounds. And I'll say right now, I think the extra grounds is very important, but I'm a big proponent. We need to take care of our buildings, and I'm not sure. And I don't mean this towards anybody. I don't know if we've always done that as well as we probably should have. And I really think that would be helpful at the high school. So.
And
My
keep
vote
in
for
mind,
the next one was direct relation with cost with the vote for the previous one.
there's a lot of crossover too between grounds and the custodial. So, if it's rainy and they can't be outside mowing and doing some of the other stuff, they're inside changing ballasts, switching light bulbs. So, there is a lot of, it's really buildings and grounds, and they're all under one big umbrella. So there's a lot of helping out with each other. But the next one is the custodian. So we did a pretty careful analysis of square footage and staffing. And what we found is that at GMS and LMS, based on the staffing levels and the square footage, where we need to be, we're able to maintain a level of cleanliness that we're comfortable with. At CHS, it was very askew. There seemed to have been some cuts that were made sometime, 5-6 years ago, and we never recovered from that. And frankly, our newest building, which ought to shine a little bit more than the others, doesn't. And that's not because the people aren't doing everything they can to keep up with it. You're talking about a building that's heavily used by the community and by the school in the after hours, and then is understaffed based on any analysis that you can look at.
So we did the square footage analysis, and basically at LMS and GMS at current staffing level, we're expecting those custodians to clean between 24 and 25,000 square feet. Those buildings aren't as heavily used at night as CHS, same staffing level as the other two buildings at night. We're expecting these guys to do between 40 and 45,000 square feet apiece with constant use of the building. There's people in that building until 9-10 o'clock sometimes when they're punching out. So it's really definitely a need. It was mentioned in the NEASC report when NEASC came through. They said, this building, for being the newest, doesn't look it. So it's time to really start taking care of that building.
And so the board voted 5-0 to support that. And finally, a special ed facilitator. This has been an ongoing topic. I mean, the reality is that our special ed director, Devin Leave, she's still here? Excellent. So what she does, and I had her last time, I keep pushing her to keep explaining all these hats that she wears and all of the stuff that she's asked to do, and that is without somebody to help. And so it really is putting a tremendous burden. And it's an area where, again, because of the legal requirements of what we have to do, one slip up, and then a case could go to an arbitrator to come in and say, here's what you have to do to remedy that situation. And it'll exceed this in a heartbeat.
Did we not in the past include training to bring in-house one per, it was at least one per building to have, I could have sworn we had an emergency $25,000 one year to help start the training of special ed teachers to bring them to that level to help offset some of that workload. Did that not get fully implemented?
That was for the certification requirement when we're determining eligibility. You had to have people around the table with
Okay.
certifications in specific learning disabilities, emotional disturbances, intellectual and developmental disabilities. So that's what we were doing that for, to get certifications.
And we've completed, do we have those certified people at each building now?
We had, I think, at the time, I think there were 2 that ended up finishing the programming. But this request is not.
So the board did not accept this. It doesn't lighten the load by any stretch, but it's, again, a choice that we're making, and we continue to look at models, and are there other ways that we can come after this position and provide the appropriate level of support so that we can stay where we need to be, and make sure that all the juggling balls up in the air at one time, that none of them get dropped. So that's the challenge that we have. So there's the overall list. When we get to the staffing part, you'll see some of this embedded into that based on the votes that the board made. So now we can do food service, unless you have something you want to ask me about this. All right. Food service should be pretty quick. In fact, Lauren is our new food service director. If you've watched board meetings, she's really brought a fresh set of eyes into food service. We're providing the board with monthly reports of how our food service is operating, and the numbers between 2017-18 and then 2018-19 really increased dramatically. And then the early numbers for September and October are also showing an increase over last year. So actually, I asked her today to go back and add the 17-18 numbers in, because I said, here you are increasing it, and we're all saying, but you already did a big increase, so what really does it look like over a 2-year trend? So we're going to have those numbers going forward. It's just adding them back into the spreadsheet so that we can sort of track that over time. So she's done a great job with food service and getting the program headed. So,
So y'all know food service being a self-sustaining program, a lot of the things we get money from federal government, state government, and then it's all local sales. So in most cases, it will not impact the tax rate. This past year, we did have a loss, partially, changing of staffing hours, making investment in the program, updating equipment. A lot of the equipment in these kitchens was outdated, not working, constantly trying to get it to work right. And we had to take care of those things. Also in past years, you'll see the very first line, USDA commodities. So in the past, so that's federal surplus foods that you can bid on and get at auction, and it's significantly cheaper. In the past, they've stocked up on a lot of canned goods, which canned goods through regular food service companies are relatively reasonable, where you can get your meats and your cheeses through this, the more expensive stuff. So Lauren has really worked hard to make sure that we're utilizing that to get those more expensive items, to reduce costs in food. And also, we're now actively participating in the New Hampshire Buying Group, which does the same type of thing. So last year alone, state bid went to Hood Milk, and we were paying $4,000 to $5,000 more per year for milk than we had to, because we weren't participating in the state bid. So these types of things really focusing on trying to bring the costs down, because as our enrollment does go down a little bit, maybe our local revenue doesn't keep up. with the expenses. So we're really trying to level things out. So maybe that worst case scenario, we break even this year, which is fine. We make a little bit of profit and start building that fund balance up again. Just going through the budget quick, you'll see in the district-wide financial services, there was a bookkeeper position. We have since reduced that position. It's no longer within the SAU. That's now between the food service director and our accountant. A lot of those needs are being fulfilled. We're looking at this year, and actually we didn't spend it. We were looking and converting to a software called Mosaic, which was about a $16,000 investment. We chose not to do that because the numbers in terms of finances and expenditures weren't working out the way we needed them to be able to fund that. This year, in doing further review, we're looking at going to something called Meals Plus. They'll make it cleaner for the parents. It's more user-friendly on our end. So we're looking to do that conversion into that. And there is an option to maybe do early conversion to it, and they'll defer billing to next year. So we have it in the budget for next year, but they will allow us to start transitioning. So we might see it coming. Other than that, no big equipment purchases. Good size reductions in the food budgets because of that better utilization of the New Hampshire Buying Group and the USDA. Other than that, relatively level, and actually overall budget comes down slightly from last year.
Any questions relative to the food services budget? All right, hearing none. So that concludes tonight's budget presentations. So I'd like to thank everybody from the school who came to visit. We appreciate your time and the opportunity to ask questions direct. If I receive any questions, they'll go through the proper channels in order to get to you, but we appreciate your participation and feedback. Thank you. All right, so we'll go move through the rest of this real quickly. Town business updates.
I was wrong last week. We didn't meet Monday. We meet next Monday.
Okay.
Apologies for that.
I think the only thing I had heard is tax bill soon, right? That's the big
Yeah.
question in town.
They're working on it.
The
Acceptance.
DRA did receive our numbers today and approved our revenue set, so we should be seeing the tax rate within the next couple of days.
Okay. So to all watching who are anxiously anticipating a tax bill, it'll be there soon.
Merry Christmas.
30-day payment will be right in time for right before Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Start saving your pennies. All right. So that's it for, unless there's anything else we need for town business.
That's it.
All right.
Accepting the unanticipated
Oh, yeah, there was
revenue.
an unanticipated revenue that you're gonna have a meeting to discuss.
Yeah, we're gonna have that next week. Yep. That'll
right.
be part of the game. Tune in.
Yay. I'm sure it'll be a lively discussion.
Madam Chairman, just for point of reference, there's no member input on this agenda. Is that intentional?
That's probably because I ran out of formatting space. Usually
I'm
we can
sensitive to
absolutely-
time anyway, so.
Well, we had to talk about new business. Last meeting, we discussed sending a representative to the Board of Selectmen's Capital Improvement Plan Committee. And the discussion was, since it's going to impact the budget and moving forward, that we probably ought to get somebody on that as it starts. So,
And your name and Miss Forty's name were mentioned.
Wonderful. It's the will of the committee. I mean, as I sent a note to the chair, and I believe it was read at the last meeting, right? I do believe it's the will of the committee. If the committee feels, I guess, under a non-voting circumstance, if I understood that correctly, fine. Impartial, right?
so remind me, who are,
If we'd like to do it, that's
do you
great.
remember who the members are going to be on that committee? Like, all right, I was wondering, for some reason I thought you had citizen input, and that's why I was like, I kind of want to be on that side versus
Wish I could help you.
representative. All right, so are there any nominations for people for a representative to the budget to the Board of Selectmen's Capital Improvement Plan? So we have a couple of people who are interested. Are there any nominations?
You nominate both of them, but
We need one, so I'm going to nominate, Andrew, and just because I know you've been involved in other, the playground committee and the other, so I think you have a good understanding of where some of that stuff is. There's also a position potentially for the school board, so it doesn't mean that you can't both represent in some way. So, but I'm going to nominate Andrew to the capital improvement plan for the board of selectmen. We can only do one vote at a time because there's one position. So you vote for Andrew. I nominate Andrew. We vote if he loses, then you can vote for Nicole or nominate Nicole. So we'll have this vote, and then we will open the consideration for a budget committee representative to the school board's capital planning committee. And then all right. So is there a second for nominating Andrew?
I'll second it.
All right, second. Would you like to?
Look, I'm happy to serve. It's the will of the committee.
All right. So yep.
Which one do you prefer? Just want to know. Do you prefer one either? I mean, like school. Are you interested in the school board one as well? Or?
One of the points of clarification that I have, since we're in the discussion part of this now, is I don't personally see a material difference between the school board capital planning committee and the BOS board of selectmen capital planning committee, because there's a school board board member on the board of selectmen capital committee as well. So really, what's the difference?
Each one felt the need to have their own, I suppose.
Understood.
So
but the goals and objectives are
right. So the one consideration is that I believe the school board mentioned they meet Wednesdays at 4. So whether or not your time frame allows.
I cannot do that.
I'm able to do that. So there you go.
I can't do that.
It makes it simple that one can make it, one can't. So all those in favor of Andrew representing.
Nicole is able to do the school board at 4. I am not able to do that.
And you're okay with school board?
When does the board of selectmen meet? That's not set yet?
We haven't said it yet.
Okay.
All right. So all those in favor of Andrew representing the budget committee to the board of selectmen's capital improvement plan committee, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed and abstain.
Aye.
All right. So that's 701. Thank you, Andrew. We look forward to the reports.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to nominate Ms. Forty for the school board capital plan.
So I think first, before we get in there, we have to discuss adding a person because right now it's a fully
I'm sorry.
voting member. So we
I
want.
thought that was discussed at last.
We
last
said
session.
we would reopen it this meeting.
Ah.
So this time we're going to discuss. So the current request from the school board is a fully participating member. We would like to send somebody with a caveat that it's a non-voting
Right, so
member.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to nominate Ms. Forty as a non-voting member of the school board capital planning committee.
I'll second it.
And second, excellent. All those in favor of Nicole Forte representing the budget committee on the school board's capital planning committee, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstain. 601. Excellent. So we look forward to the updates. All right. Any other new business we should discuss?
So just one more point of clarification. Selectman Leary, if you would just inform the Board of Selectmen, right, and to let me know the meeting rhythm and cadence, and that'd be
We're
great.
meeting Monday, so I'm sure it'll be.
Well, the Board of Selectmen is meeting Monday.
Right, exactly.
You're not expected to be there Monday yet.
But you're invited, of course.
And the school board, when is your next meeting for the capital improvement plan?
I don't even know.
I believe they mentioned it was December 4th. I will.
All right, so if you could
It
just
is.
forward that information, we'll get it.
December 4th at
December
4.
4th, yeah. Perfect. Oh, jump right into the thick of things. All right, so since I missed member input, we'll insert it real quick in here. Anybody have anything they'd like to say?
I do, right? So I did receive the Excel budget. I did some analysis. I worked hard actually overnight and this morning to do my magic on that budget. As you've seen, it's in really, if I'll just take a moment quickly, just to show you. This has not been sent to anyone, not even our chair as of yet, but I'll gladly circulate it after the session.
So the ink isn't drying.
There it goes,
Getting personal.
up close
We
and
can sit
personal.
over in this chair if you'd like.
Yeah, I might go sit over there.
That way you don't cream.
Just for point of reference, so everyone has an understanding of what it is that they're looking at when you receive this file. Okay, I'll make this a little bit larger. So this is the budget as received by the business administrator, right, in its original format. No edits, nothing. The next tab is the edited version of this file, right? Where all of the details of all the individuals, all of the details have been removed. And what this allows me to do, and I'll make this a bit bigger too, is it allows me to understand their account numbers, right? And it allows me to break it out by fund, by location, by function, as well as by subject. So I'm able to differentiate the location. All right, this particular account is tied to district ride. This particular account is tied to the regular programs. It's also tied to Social Security in this case, right? So we're able to look at the budget not only on a page-by-page basis, but actually on a totality basis, right? And so that was the angle that I've tried to take with this budget in years past. I found it to be very effective, and I wanted to give the committee this information this year as well, right? So basic analysis, this is what I've done. Information is that we've actually spent $19.9 million in 2017. We're currently requesting $22.9 million this year, as stands from the school board, right? So that's a $3.05 million increase. What are the drivers for that increase? Because when I hear a $3 million increase over a short period of time, why, right? We recently passed a teacher's contract, right? But over the past years, we've also heard that there's been no steps, right? That there's been no increases. So how is it that I'm seeing large increases when yet on the other side of the equation, we're hearing that there's none, right? So I'm trying to balance that. Yes.
Is the new teacher's contract in that, like that 22?
It's in this because it's been added to the budget by the business administrator. Yes. Okay. So the primary areas that I am most interested in are district-wide and Griffin, right? Because this is where, right, I see even a year-over-year difference between 2020 and 2021, right? Where there's an $800,000 increase in Griffin and $143,000 in GMS. If I look at just the period, you can see there's $1 million increase on each of those lines. So when we talk about the increases of this budget, this is where we're feeling the pinch. We're not feeling the pinch across LMS. It's pretty level funded, as we heard tonight. We're not feeling the pinch against CHS. It's pretty level funded, right? That's why I don't have a ton of questions for those specific budgets. Even for GMS, we heard just tonight from the principal that, in fact, there's a slight decrease. So the challenge is when we're hearing it from the principals is they're excluding salaries and benefits. They're excluding district-wide numbers. They're excluding technology costs from their budgets that they present to us because they're broken out separately. But if we look at it at the program level and say all of GMS, including salary, these are the actual numbers, right? So I just want to make that clear. And then I decided to say, hey, all right, let me see if I can drill down, this isn't final yet, into more closely the numbers that they presented tonight. This is just kind of a work in progress. This next tab is interesting, right? And again, I just really want the committee to understand, and I am sensitive to time. This is specifically looking at the budget and salaries and benefits only. So all of the accounts from 100 all the way to 250 that they use to calculate their salaries and benefits, okay? So as you can see here, there's the total budget, what was requested or approved in each of these years, and what the relation is to salaries and benefits. So the salaries and benefits has remained fairly flat over the years, 77, 78%, right? But this, you also have to consider, is proportionate to the total budget, right? So as the budget's going up, this is maintaining the same increases, right? And then I decided to look at it cost per student, right? And so one of the sheets that we received in our binders of the hard copies is how many students are in the school system, right? And so we've actually increased it $14,000, $14,700 for those that are watching at home in 2017 to $17,683 today on the total budget, right? People are complaining about feeling the pinch. We're feeling the pinch because of this, right? This is why our taxes are increasing. And if I look at it just in relation to salaries and benefits and not total budget, it's the same $3,000 swing, right? $11,400 is the cost per pupil specifically attributed to salaries and benefits. And then $13,800, again, in current year, specifically attributed to salaries and benefits. Right. And
can I just ask real quick?
Yes.
Does that take into account the fact that we've added kindergarten?
Yes.
Full-day kindergarten?
Yes.
And the Cost of the portables?
Yes, I mean, there's various factors and warrants and budget items that
Figure it out.
voters approve that are all in this.
Okay.
And as Mr. Hodgkin asked, right, this is also in the 2021 number, it's also now including the new teacher's contract adjustment, the $280 or so thousand dollars. Right. Then I decided to break it out, repairs and maintenance. All right. So repairs and maintenance is one of those items that we always look at as a committee. You know, we've gone through all these pages and there's all sorts of line 430s throughout this entire binder, right? Here is the actual total details of all repairs and maintenance across the school district, right? As you can see, all right, it's fairly flat, right? 411,000, it was 395,000. Okay, not a ton there, right? Travels and conferences. Look at this one. $48,000 in 2017, and now we're requesting nearly $90,000. Doubled, almost doubled, right? So our district and our tax dollars are funding nearly twice the amount of travel and conferences. Two line items, line 272 and 580. Yep. That are in these, right? So this is saying we're agreeing as a district to fund additional trainings, to fund additional conferences, to fund all the costs associated with that. Are we okay with that? Right? I know in years past when I've been on this committee, this has been an area where we've cut it. Right? Because this board has made a decision that says, you know what, we agree to travels and conferences, but we agree to it to a certain extent, right? So this might be an area where I would look to make a motion. Under miscellaneous, all right, miscellaneous are all these general things that are in the budget. And so when I went through and looked at the details in Excel, these are award banquets, gifts, ceremonies, food costs, etc. Right? So all the generic items that are, I'll call them extras loosely in the budget. As you can see, it's gone up over nearly $30,000 in a short period of time. So again, an area that, as we're flipping page by page, okay, it sounds reasonable, it looks reasonable, right? Look at it in its total. Wow, 30 grand's a big number, right? That's a lot more money that we're spending in this specific budget. And then similar kind of analysis, I broke it out by GMS, just so you can see exactly where all the increases are, LMS and CHS. Now, again, these numbers on these three tabs will not align to the GMS, LMS, and CHS in your binders because this is including everything, salaries and benefits for the schools, technology, all of it, right? If I look at GMS, right, and the GMS and district-wide I mentioned as, kind of the big standout budgets, GMS, we can see salaries and benefits over the period has gone up $993,000, nearly $1 million. How can that be? I truly don't understand. How can that be if we haven't had a teacher's contract? If we've heard all along that, our teachers aren't getting raises, they're not getting step increases, we're behind. That's been the message presented, right? The numbers show salaries and benefits only has gone up $1 million. Fact. This is fact, right? LMS, same relation. Okay. All right. $439,000. Not nearly the extent of growth as GMS. CHS, $234,000. Again, not nearly the growth. I mean, in GMS specifically with salaries and benefits, it's gone way out of proportion compared to the other two schools. And I don't understand why. District-wide is the other budget, right? This has gone up $1 million.
Something that kills me looking at
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I'll circulate this after the budget, after this meeting. District-wide is another one, right? $1 million. So look, the point being is I would truly appreciate and encourage every committee member to take this information, to look at it in total, right? To play around with your own numbers, right? And let's have a discussion about it because while we're going through page by page, again, it's hard. Yes, this sounds reasonable. Yes, I can understand there's a cost increase, but it's only a couple $100. It's only $500, right? Add up all those 480s, all those 580s, all those 272s, and it's literally $50,000 or more in increases, right? So this budget's up $1 million between current year and next year. $1 million. That growth is unsustainable, in my opinion. So again, I would ask that this committee take a hard look at the numbers, take a look at the facts, and let's have a discussion about it. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Other member input? All right, public input, just because it's on the agenda. All right.
Do we want to go over the schedule changes or?
Oh, yeah, so I did circulate an updated schedule. We had discussed last meeting adding Tuesdays, 12:03 and 12:10. But I have looked at the Department of Revenue Administration. They have actually this year created a nice little matrix of the dates you have to have things done by. And some of them are involving petition warrant articles with bonds, budget hearings, deliberatives. So realistically, the budget hearing based on the matrix is scheduled too early. So by moving that out a week, then we can just backing it out provides more time for moving the warrant article consideration into early January, which allows the school and the town the opportunity to tie up their loose ends, because some things are just going to take a little longer, and move those discussions into those first couple weeks. And the voting, it's discussion and voting, but that also gives us some Thursdays to continue with the budget review. And there were Thursdays we had already earmarked as potentials for other items anyway. So it's a matter of minimizing the impact of people's schedules by staying on a Thursday. It's within the current schedule, and it provides additional time. So those are the dates that I am established, unless there are any objections or a majority, we can't form a quorum. That's what I plan to move forward with. I've contacted the town administrator and the town clerk, and I heard no complaints with regards to not complying with any state. My concern was moving out a week from January 9th to January 16th. Are we still in compliance? The answer was yes, the deadline is the 21st. So it gives us more time to complete a more thorough review, as some people have anticipated. Based on how we went through the town meeting, I think we're going to need some more time to go through the school than was originally anticipated. You okay?
So what are the dates here?
So it would be,
If this is helpful. So it's adding the 12th, the 19th. It's just basically going straight through.
Right, I understand, but for our meetings.
those are the meeting dates.
Okay.
So we will kill off the 12-3 and the 12-10, and then just stay with Thursdays from 12-5 through.
So we're not doing 12-3.
No 12-3, no 12-10. I think that we'll have more positive interaction if we're not meeting twice a week for 2 weeks. So it gives an opportunity to digest information as we receive it and then make informed decisions and still wrap up by the time we need to be done. So are there any other comments relative to anything we've discussed tonight or things we ought to discuss?
The Excel file is in your inbox for circulation to the committee.
Excellent.
That's a good idea.
All right. So hearing no more input from anyone, is there a motion?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Jessica, second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I abstained. All right, so our next meeting will be Thursday, November 21st. We'll see you here.